bad words were being said here. YouTube not only logged me out, it gave me a big, dirty message that said live streaming's not available right now. Oh, good evening to you all. Joy. Right, let's start us up here. Hello, Carol. Didn't you say Renee was in a smidgen early, Mike?
Renee was in very early.
Well, hello to Renee as well. And Debbie. And who else have we got? Jonathan. Hello, Jonathan. Oh, you have a starring role tonight. There's a spoiler. A little something from you. Going to be used in a demo. Hello, Peter. Who else have we got? Deb. Hello, Deb. Hello, Kim. Oh, Seattle having a moment of sun this afternoon. Well, as luck would have it, Kim, I don't know how many months behind I am, but I had an episode of Station 19 on, and there was a heat wave in Seattle, and they were trying to push the fire tender into the station, and they all got burnt hands because it was that hot. Oh, it wouldn't do me at all. Okay, let's carry on. Who else have we got? I think I'm there with everybody. I think I am. Lots and lots and lots of chat. Wow. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. And I think I have. Oh, no, I haven't. Elmar. Hello. Hello, Elmar. Hello, Pete. Long time no see, Pete. Jonathan has no idea. It's a little something that you made, Jonathan. And I need specific files tonight. And there you go.
Hello, Pete. I will be looking at your spreadsheet. Not tonight.
Hello, Graham.
But I will be looking at it.
So I think I'm up to date. No, I'm not. I'm not. Andrea's with us. Hello, Andrea. Right, I think I'm up to date now. So I had great fun with the presentation. Not. But hopefully you're seeing it. I'm going to have to move windows just so I can see, I think. But let's see how that goes. Yeah, that's not going too well there. Fair enough, we'll do it the old way then. Right, I think we're okay. Let's move on and see if everything moves, because if it doesn't... Ah, it did! Yay! Right, as you can see, we have a busy agenda tonight, so let's get on with it. We have Notion and Craft updates. One we can see and one that we can look at and imagine, because it's not actually out yet. Then we've got a digital book, but this time we're going for a fixed layout. And in a meta move, I'm using something real for that. Then we've got digital assets management. Is that digital assets plural or something? Well, never mind, with Eagle. We've got some freebies. Mike is going mobile with pivot tables in Numbers and then doing Power Query in Excel. And we have in our Scrivener Masterclass a completely custom compile. All done to match Patricia's requirements. So hopefully Patricia will be with us by then. It's going to be a good one, that. Because when you're doing a custom compile, you can do it where you're just like, oh, we'll tick that and that and that. There you go, it's customised. But no, this had requirements. This had requirements. Right, and then we've got an unboxing. So, did I just go backwards instead of forwards? I think I did. Oh, it's going to be one of those nights. Oh dear, it is, but never mind. Let's carry on regardless. So we're broadcasting in 1080p. What has YouTube done to you? I didn't get any further than the fact it logged me out and then said that live streaming wasn't available. That was when the bad words were said. But make sure that the cog in the little right-hand corner is saying the right thing. While you're down there, there's a like button. There's also a dislike button, but, you know, only I can see that. After last week's stuff. So a like would be better. There you go. Okay, so what were we up to this week? Oh, it was a rare old week. Not that all our weeks aren't rare old weeks. But we had 8 shows on Saturday as ever, but they were pre-recorded. At 8 o'clock, we went into Brooklyn's by request with a weird theme. Even if I say so myself. It was winter, warmth and whiskey. But we had lots of songs, didn't we?
We did.
I was surprised. We had a ball, an absolute ball. Tesco rocked up, but sadly, it wasn't Wendy. So Lola was less than interested. No extra treats if it's not Wendy, you see. So Sunday came around, and it was the last day of book club. It was where we were doing our syntopical read of 2 books, and it's done. It's all done. There is going to be a mini book club in December, but I probably won't be doing that one, to be honest. And the next one is January, so fingers crossed for January, which took us on to Monday. Now, you may be wondering why we've had Saturday and Sunday and there was no football. It's International Week. This didn't used to be a thing, now it is. So that meant England were playing on Monday. Now, they were playing San Marino. Many, many years ago, I think it was 93, ready for the 94 World Cup.
I think you're right.
Mike and I were on a date. We were heading to Mike's flat, but we had to stop and get some milk first. England were about to kick off, seriously, about to kick off. And they had to win 7-0. But it's all right. It was San Marino. Okay. The odds were actually good. While we went in to get milk, when we got back to the car, they were 1-0 down. And they ended up winning agonisingly 7-1. 1 goal off qualification for the World Cup. So this was retribution. And they got to 10. It's a rugby score, isn't it?
Mm.
I was rather hoping, because I think it was it 6 or 5? It was either 6 or 7-0 at half time, and I said they won't try in the second half. But they did, and they got to 10-0, so we were quite happy with that one. Oh, if only United could do that, then Mike could be a much happier bunny. But never mind. So, Tuesday. Big day on Tuesday. Big day. 3 years. 3 years what? I hear you say. Well, no one remembered, but we did. 3 years after ours. It was on the 16th of November 2018. We decided we'd do one show and see how it went. And obviously that went well. Who was here? Who remembers that? I'm pretty sure Graham was here.
I think Kimmy was here.
Who's watched it since? It was the great unboxing event. Oh, it was. We had a new iPad, a new MacBook Air. Mike had a new Surface. What a night. What a night. We celebrated this year, 3 years in. We celebrated by going into the recording studio again. Which meant there was a MacBites imminent. So, on Wednesday, if you remember, last week, there was an issue. I got this mail telling me that a webinar I'd registered for had been moved. And I couldn't work out to when. Anyway, all was revealed this week. Wednesday at 3:30. What more could go wrong? I now had a link and I knew exactly when it was. Everything was fine. Yeah, what could actually go wrong? Which was when it started. And I thought, just a minute, that looks suspiciously like French to me. I thought, surely not, because I didn't get an email in French. I thought, no, never mind. Maybe it's just the title slide. I read the title. I thought, it's okay, back to English. Then I looked at the slide and thought, oh, we're back to French again. What the actual? I mean, really? Did I miss the memo? But then again, that could have passed me by if it was in Swahili. And so far, we're on to our 4th language at this stage. Because as we moved on, we had the presenter speaking in English, the slides in French, with a Spanish translation running along in the background. To be honest, the whole thing was a case of make it stop in any language. Those slides were so distracting because my French, not great. I could work out certain words. It was the words that I didn't know that I was looking at, trying to work them out. Oh, it was bad. So yeah, won't be doing that again. Seriously.
Graham was there.
I thought Graham was there.
Paul Kingham.
Oh, I remember that.
Kevin.
Oh, wow.
Deborah Benstead. That's one of the Debs.
That's one of the Debs.
Yeah.
Loving it. Renee says, good thing Vivaldi translates. Well, I was wondering how Monterey would do with that. But to be honest, the slides were coming up and they were talking and I'd got this Spanish person in the background. And I thought, I could select it and then try and translate it. But do you know what? Don't make it difficult for me to attend an event. Seriously, just bad news. Anyway, things returned to something like normality. After that, once I decided that was a bad idea and I got out of it, there was a MacBites. There was a new MacBites. Pearls before swine. If you're wondering what the pearl was, it was a blast from the past. Google Wave made a special appearance in that show. So yes, we had a great show with pearls before swine. We were talking about Hello Hello this week. Hello Hello got mentioned on this week's show. It got mentioned on Pearls Before Swine. It did. That was our 2-factored Amazon delivery, where they emailed me a password that we had to give to the deliverer. And if we didn't get our booty, which was last week's unboxing, which was my new monitor. So I had to give Mike the password, and then the lady arrived and she said, "What is the password?" And Mike had to give her the password.
Through my mask.
Unbelievable. So, Thursday. Thursday did not start well. Right, for this to make any sense, you need to understand, I don't go to bed till, well, some people would say late, but I could say early, depending. So, rule 1. What is rule 1? Don't phone me. Ever. Don't do the phone. Don't ever phone me. Text me, email me, WhatsApp me, smoke signals, carrier pigeon, but don't call me. It never ends well. So, you can imagine my abject horror when I got a phone call. It must be a crisis, said I, and we're talking a life and death crisis at that. Anyone with my phone number knows that. And even then, since my phone's set to only allow repeated calls, and then only from my contacts, whoever it was had rung at least twice to bypass my digital moat. Did I mention life and death crisis? The major issue for me was I'd only been in bed 3 hours. Something better be on fire, literally. It was my dentist. Again, what the actual? My teeth were with me, and they were fine. I ignored it. They could wait. But sleep, well and truly disturbed, not a happy bunny. Make them wait until the very next day. They can wait longer. First job of the day was to find out what the dentist's crisis was. And his crisis? They'd booked me in when he was on holiday in February. They had 3 months to deal with that, and they thought it was worthy of 3 phone calls and 2 voicemails. Words will be had there, I can assure you. And in the voicemails, they didn't even tell me what the issue was. He was just, "Can you ring the practice urgently?" He's on holiday. Whatever. I'll move it. But, don't. I thought he'd actually moved on or died, one or the other. I thought it was that serious. No, they just wanted to move the appointment. Oh, if only I had the wah, wah, wah. That was definitely one of those. Meanwhile, Lola's foraging continues. Oh, she surpassed herself this time. Yet we're not sure what that is. Doubtless one of you will know exactly what it is. But we just decided she should leave it exactly where it was. But you know what she's like for finding something and wanting to bring it home and have it cooked? Yeah, that.
I think it's magic mushrooms.
Not quite sure what it is, but I mean, it looks horrific, doesn't it? It looks like something out of a sci-fi movie. So Mike came back and said, "Look at this. Lola found it." And just as he said that, I said, "Oh, wow." And I had literally just read that. Puppy ownership has skyrocketed in lockdown. And obviously, most of the owners not got a clue how to look after a dog. So puppies are eating mushrooms, and some of them are dying. I think it was 5% of dogs taken in with mushrooms have died. Yeah, that's not happening. So Lola was given a severe talking to, wasn't she?
Some sort of fungi.
It looks vile. Oh, it's vile. Anyway, she wasn't. She's got better. She has. She doesn't need to. Oh, Renee says phone calls are a well-accepted means of communication. No, I agree with Jonathan. Worst feature of the phone's the phone. No, it shouldn't be allowed. Do you know what I did the day after, just in case they got frisky again and decided to call?
Block them.
No, I actually turned the phone off. I very seldom turn the phone off. But I was playing around with my, what's it called now? Focus, which used to be DND. It used to be do not call me on pain of death. Now it's focus mode and everything's moved. All of the tutorials you can find are for iOS 14 and earlier. So we had the phone upside down last night looking for the option, didn't we? Anyway, I decided in the end to take the hammer to crack a nut approach and turned it off. And took an iPad in and used that instead. I totally agree with Jonathan. Shouldn't be allowed. People shouldn't be allowed that.
Posted on Facebook.
Oh, they're mushrooms. Well, we're still not having them. They look bad. Bad news. Bad news. So, let's get on and look at the Notion update. Oh, there is an update to my beloved Notion. You may have spotted it already. On the other hand, it's not really been trumpeted. So, let's go and have a look at it. Right, where did that go? Right, I have you in a window over here, I think. I'm going to need another window, though, aren't I? Unless I use one of the others. No, then I won't see the chat. Right, let's have a new one of those, and let's go to Notion. And then I'll bring it on the screen. That'll be a good idea, won't it? I think I put it in there. Awesome. Right, let's get rid of that. And let's get rid of that. So one of the new updates is simple tables. Now we do have an option down here and it does say table. But that is a database table. What we are talking about now is something entirely different. So slash and type table and you will get this option. It's one of the basic blocks, so it's not a database block. Okay. It is a simple block and it is a simple table. Now, we looked a couple of weeks back at something that Craft had done. They'd added simple tables. So Notion had to do the same. And that's what you get. It is not a database. It is a simple table. You can add extra columns to it. Hovering, you can add extra rows to it. You can also grab hold of this and pull down, or take it up, so you can get exactly the number of columns and rows that you need. You also have options in here. So, I actually recreated one of the things from Evernote, which is a 6-month calendar. Okay. So, that's what I'll create here. Can I show you what that looks like? No, I'll just create it. But first of all, let's have a look at what we've got here. We have this domino, which selects the whole simple table. But when you are inside a cell, you have another one to select the entire column. You have one at the side to, hang on, let's get it back in there. Up it pops. Got to catch it on the way past. It's being awkward in terms of letting me catch it. There we go. And that one is selecting the entire row. From here, you can create a header row. So you are turning that row into a header row if you slide that on and it changes the background colour. You can do the same here by having a header column if you want to, but what we're doing doesn't need a header column. Right. You have options in here as well, so you can turn them on from the table level. You also have this option which fits the table to the page width. So it automatically makes that the full width. If this was full width, we can go up there and it will make that table full width. Obviously, that's not what we want because we need more of these. What I'm going to do is to create a 6-month calendar in the style of an Evernote note. So this is what it looks like in Evernote when you do this. But let's do January and... no, let's spell it right. February and March. That's going to be the date column. So I'm short of columns. So I need to add some more in. And at this point, you can see the problem. It then starts scooting off. So if you're going to use that make it fit option, I would use that at the end when you've got the thing designed. This one doesn't actually need to be that wide. And over here, I need 2 more. And now they're all different and heaven knows what that's going to look like. So at that point, I could make that fit. Up you come on. But that's going to give me a problem with this bit here because I actually need that narrower, but that'll do. Right, this one, of course, is going to be April and May and June. And how I make that into a calendar is just by putting the number in the middle. So I would literally go through that all the way down. No, we don't want that, do we? Let's get 8 in there. All the way down to 31. So I don't want to add, because when I click on that and I add one, I actually have to move the mouse before I can add another one. It doesn't hover in the same part and let me just click, click, click. So a far better bet is to grab it and pull it down. So we need 31 of these. Or do we? We actually need 32 because we've got a header. So that there should be a 32. It is. Right, so obviously I'd have to carry on putting the numbers in. Oh, we don't want 111, do we? Right. 16, 17. Getting there. It's actually moving me down, but it's not moving me down until I start typing, which is annoying because I can't actually see it then. But we are nearly there, and 31. Right, so you can see what we've actually got there. And there is my calendar, my 6-month calendar. Now, at this point, what I actually wanted to do was grab the first box because the 1st of January is a Saturday. No, it's not. It's a Friday, isn't it? Because we've got a show. So it's a Friday, I think. Whatever. But when there is a weekend, I would like the background of the cell to be a different colour. Yeah, you can't do that. You also can't select. So if I go in here...
1st of January is a Saturday.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
Oh, that's right. It's New Year's Eve we're having a show, isn't it? It's all come back to me. It's a Saturday. Right. I can't select multiple cells. As soon as I start to drag from one cell, it selects the entire table. There is some way to go with this, but if you need this to demonstrate something, to show something, and you don't really want the full table thing, then it might be perfect for you. But I wanted to do things I thought were simple, like take these headings and centre align them, and you couldn't do that either. So there is a way to go with this, but it's there. So I have managed to create a calendar table. Right, let's have a look at another one of these simple tables and see the other things. So are we going to do this? Come on, you know you want to do it. Table, right. Okay, so what can you do with it? So let me put some numbers in here and we'll add a few more down there like that. Okay, so 4 and 5 and 6 and 7. What you can do with your domino at the side is you can reorder these, dragging them around, which is grand. Your problem is you can't sort them, okay? So while there's things you can do, like manually order them, you couldn't sort them like that. So there's one problem for a start. Let's put in here, what should we put in here? Let's put in apps. Affinity Publisher and Affinity Photo. We've got to have Designer as well. Affinity Designer. What else have we got? Well, we're doing Eagle today and Scrivener. So we'll just put some apps in. What else do I use all the time? Oh, my beloved Vivaldi. Oh, we need to put Google Wave, don't we? Because that had a renaissance this week. Right, so I've got some stuff in there. They're not alphabetical either. Now, what you can do is grab these and move them. And if that, so this could be the number of sessions or something like that, could be the order of them. But there is a trick if you want to do this. What you can do in here at the table level is turn this into a database. So if it gets, to be more information that you want to keep in a database, then you can do that. But there is another reason to bother doing it. And that is, in here, you can sort by this column. So we can sort that ascending, title ascending. And now we get Vivaldi at the bottom, etc. We could sort it the other way. So whatever you need to do, it's at table level. So we're sorting descending now. Let's turn it back to ascending. But that's no use to you now because now it's a full database and not a simple table. But you can go back into here and now turn it into a simple table, and it comes through. No, it doesn't. Oh, naughty, naughty. It did in rehearsals. I wonder if they've made a change since I did that and it worked. How bizarre. Let's turn it into a database again. Sort ascending. Right. Why, working. It did the other day. No, it's not doing it now. What it's doing is retaining what it was before. So they've actually crippled it in the last 2 days. Oh, well, never mind. So you're back to sorting it manually. I do think they'll fix all of this. I really do think they'll fix all of this. This is just the initial things. Obviously, you can resize these things as needed. So it's a nice layout for something that doesn't need to be a database. So for a layout like this calendar, I think that's perfect. You wouldn't want to try and build that in a database. It's a nice addition, but I think it's got a long way to go to be useful. For example, for me, this would be fantastic. It would replace or could replace some Google Sheets if I could put a checkbox in there. But in these cells, if you put the / you can't put other blocks. It isn't that you can put in anything. It's not a database. It's not a database. I think, as I say, they will update that. But at the moment, that's what we've got. So while I go and get another link, what do we think to that? Hit, miss, will you use it? Not use it? I think it might be, for people who find a database a bit confusing, it's a good place to start. Can you export the table to Excel? I don't think you can as a table. Let's have a look. Move it to... No, not from there. But with that selected, if we go up here, let's see what we've got up here. No, I think it's going to do the whole page. But what you could do if you wanted to do that is you could take this. So can we move this to a blank page? Not really, it's got to have a blank page to start with. So let's add a blank page for it. So I've got this simple tables page, which is where I'm at. But if I add another one, and I call this simple table 2, right, and I go back into here, if I grab hold of it, so let's get down here and put it in here so it's on its own, what you could potentially do is either export that and see what you get out of it. So let's do an export. And when you say Excel, it's going to have to be Markdown and CSV. But let's do an export and see what we get. Folder downloads. Right, it's the top one. So I'm opening that up so we can see it. I've got one simple Markdown file. That's interesting. Right, let's open up the Markdown file. I've got no idea what it's going to open with. That's what you get if you export it. So I think the answer to that is no. Not like that. But there are things you can do. So with it on its own page, if you turn that into a database, you should then be able to export it and then turn it back when you've finished. So export. And you'd still have to go for Markdown. Let's see what we get if we do that. Always a giggle finding this out, that it doesn't do anything like what you want, isn't it? Is it going to look exactly the same, or are you going to surprise me? Oh, we have success. Okay, it's opened up in numbers and we have a table. So you would have to convert it first to a database and then export it from there. At the moment, you can convert these at will. So you can go back in and then turn it into that once you've exported it. But that is the nearest you might get. It's got a fair way to go, to be honest. But what people wanted was just to have like a list like that. But as I'm saying, to me, if I'm going to have a list like that, and I think that does look neat and tidy, but by comparison to what Craft can do with it, it's got a way to go. I want to have different background colours, and there are workarounds, but they are absolutely hideously complicated. But I'd also want to have checkboxes to check them off. I think aligning the text is a complete necessity. So it's a great start, but it feels like what they've done is the engineers have finished with it and the designers haven't arrived yet. So you can move the columns and stuff, but you can't actually do a lot with it in terms of like the niceties of it. But we like a dirty hack, don't we, Kim? So there's a dirty hack. Just convert it into a table and then convert it back. That should work most of the time if what you're trying to do is keep the data in a simple table, because you're not going to put anything in that simple table that doesn't particularly work well. But if you had a database and you converted that to a simple table, you could end up with things in it that when you convert it back to a database, it changes the data type and then things go wrong. But for a simple table to export it, there you go. Obviously, a bigger issue is importing it, isn't it? But if you had it in CSV and you brought it in, then you can convert a database into a simple table and you're off to the races with your data. So it can be done. But at the moment, there's just quite a few things where you need to hack around with it to make it work. Okay, right. I had a link elsewhere. So let's open this up. And where's my link? After hours, there's my link. Kim mentioned the unboxing and being frightened. Oh, not today. Today's unboxing is glorious and under £5. Ish. It is under £5, but there's an issue. Okay, so the other thing that they have added is a new template gallery. Now, they had templates before, so this is just a new template gallery. And this is said template gallery. So they're in categories over here. They have templates of the month, which are here. So there's a design system from Headspace and Thomas Frank. Oh, Ali's Resonance Calendar, don't get me going. Yes, I've seen the video. Fabulous idea. And 2 weeks later, Ali actually said, and I'm not using it. So why is it still there? Oh, for the rest of us to use, but it's not good enough for him. But there's a whole range of stuff here if you want documents, library, meeting notes, whatever. What I would say with the templates is, by all means, download them, have a play around with them, right? But somebody else has built these, so you don't know what the nuances are of how they actually work. So download them, have a play around with them, but by far the best thing to do is to build your own. Even if you do so by looking at one of these and then trying to replicate it. That's what I do. I hardly ever go in. At the beginning, I did go in and I looked at some of these. So if we look at the design system-y one, you know, they've got embedded stuff and lights and darks and all kinds of things. I did look at that. But the thing is, I'd end up with a table, with a database that had my designs in it. And they wouldn't be linked to anything else. So really, I wanted to create an integrated system. So the design systems would be part of the wiki, in my case, and the wiki itself might be part of resources. So I wouldn't use a table and say, right, that's it. You know, download one of these templates and say, that's it, I'm just going to use that. Because you need it to integrate with the rest of your system, but it's a great way to learn. It is a great, great, great way to learn. So stuff like for planning and products or book tracking or anything like that. I mean, like we got this weekly agenda. That's great, but it's not hooked up to anything else. So to me, it needs to be linked together. But they have done these. They are great for ideas. You can go and have a look at them and then build your own, basically. I definitely remember a demo of this battle board thing. Like, no, just no. But there you go. Oh, there's one from Maria. So there's lots in there to have a look at. Some are paid, some are free. I would use them, like I say, just as like ideas, generate ideas. If I'm thinking of building something, then if I go and have a look at them, I will know whether I've missed a field out or something, or there's an option to link it to something else, something like that. Right, okay. Let's move on from Notion. So the next update, sadly, nothing to see at the moment. Why are we not moving? There we go. Is Craft 2.0. Don't panic, you've not missed it. It's not out yet. But they sent a mail this week celebrating their first birthday. They covered all their updates over the last year, and there's been so many of them. But the next one is going to be 2.0, and it should be with us within 2 weeks. Now, they said 2 weeks on Tuesday, so hopefully less than 2 weeks now. They have hinted at an API or some kind of integrations. Let me know in the chat if you use Craft. We do use Craft. I think, well, what we did was, when Notion started having moments just before we went live, Craft can work local. So we will put stuff in Craft and then transfer it to Notion. The job that we do in Craft, and it stays in Craft, and Craft is the only place to do this. And I mean, I'm not just comparing it with Notion. I'm literally comparing it with Notion, Trello, Asana, Evernote, Google Drive, anything and everything. Notion doesn't do it. Is our review of the year. And the review of the year is split up into months. But it's put out as like one blog post. So it's one almighty long blog post. And of course, in Notion, if you separate things, you can't join them up at the point of export. You've got very little in the way of export. Craft is genius in the way of export. So I could have all those pages we're looking at there and just grab them and say, make me one page, and it will do it. So that's why we use Craft for that job. Otherwise, it'd take forever. I know I wrote the first one. So that should be with us in 2 weeks. As soon as it's here, I will be showing it to you. Right, next up, we have our Creating Digital Books in Apple Pages. This is part 2. There are 2 distinct types of books, EPUBs, that it can create. There are reflowable books. These are EPUBs, standard EPUBs that you would see in Kindle, where the user, the reader, gets to change the size of the font, what font it is, and the book reflows in the Kindle or the Kindle app to accommodate that. Fixed layout is the complete opposite of that. With a fixed layout, you, as the author, get to decide what the book looks like. Now, the way this works in Pages is, as we mentioned last week, you can take a reflowable and convert it into a fixed layout. I have no idea why you would do that. But fixed layout is best created from the start when you pick the template. So let's go in and have a look at that. So, Pages. And it's opened up on the wrong thing. What are you doing there? Never mind. Right, let's get that up so I can say new document. Right, now we have in here, when we go to books, we have our portrait books, and as it says, content can reflow. So all of these are reflowable style. But when you get to the landscape option, these are the nearest that you are going to have to what iBooks Author did, which was stunning. Unfortunately, it doesn't do it anymore. Well, it does if you've got it, but if you haven't got iBooks Author, then no. So these are the options that you've got. I would suggest, depending on your content, you pick the one that kind of matches what you're kind of doing. I'm going to pick this bake shop one. In fact, we'll go on to that. What I'll do is I'll click one of the others, like this guidebook, and just show you what you've got in the template. So it's going to take a few seconds because they've got quite a lot of content in them. So it's got 5 pages. It starts off with the cover. You then have lesson 1. And that's not lesson 2. These are just layout styles for the pages. Now, this is a starting point for you. And if you have ever used iBooks Author, it should be familiar with you. You know, it looks very similar to iBooks. Does iBooks Author work in Monty? I believe it does. Do I have it installed? Well, it works there. So this is Biggles at the moment. I don't see any reason that it wouldn't unless Apple had decided not to. So Renee has got this. If Renee has iBooks Author, you could try and install it. And let's have a look if that works. But it does work on Biggles. So the style is very iBooks Author. But every element that you see here, you can customize, because this image down at the bottom, it's a placeholder. So you can drag and drop your image on it. So I have some images that I'll be working with. They are in down here. We want this. Why have you opened up? I've got stuff flying around all over. Right, let's get back to my data. And there it is, that's it. That's it. Right, so this is what I'm actually going to be using. So I'm going to drag and drop this onto here, and you can see I've actually put in one of my images. Now, it's not perfect because the placeholder itself is masked. So I've lost the left-hand side of that, and I've lost the right. But I can drag and drop images in here to my heart's content. Should we take one from the Prezzo? What shall we have? Oh, my telephone one. How about my telephone one? Oh no, that's an SVG. It won't like that. No, it'll have to be. How about the mushrooms? It might not like that either. Did it like the mushrooms? Oh, it's thinking about. There we go. Lovely, lovely mushrooms, which I can move about so I can actually get the whole thing centered. There we go. So, before you get going with this, check all of the templates out and find the one that's nearest to what you want. Not only in terms of the 5 pages it gives you, which is a good sample, but if you go into the add a page, you can see the pages you've got. So you have a blank page and you also have this page here with the 2 columns and no images. And that isn't one of the samples that you've got over here. The collage isn't either. That is a full page collage. So the options you have within the add a page are templates that are there available for you to use, master pages if you will. So do check those before you look at the 5 you've got and say, no, that won't work, because there will be others hidden under here. And what they look like is different. Let's get rid of that. Is different in every single one that you use. So back to the books and down to the layouts. That was the Exploring Wildlife. I'm not sure if we looked at Kitty's Morning Walk, which is very much a child's book. But you can see here that the text is much bigger. It's much easier for a child to consume. The images are bigger. When you go into the add a page, you have again the blank one, you have an about the author page, you have a full image graphic. There's a lot of things in here that aren't available in the sample on the left hand side that you can use. So I figured that the one that was nearest to what I wanted was the bake shop training thing. Which, apart from the fact it's kind of pinkish, but you know, I'm going to bear it for this. It's good of me. Right. Patricia says, iBooks author or pages. Where am I? I am in pages right now. I know it looks like iBooks author, but this is pages. So this is the way Apple want you to do it going forward. So I've picked this one because I thought the cover kind of worked. And let's have a look what we've got. That's the cover. We then have a section page. So this is a section divider. You can add other elements to this if you want. Media, shapes, whatever you want. This is just a separator page. Then you've got an introduction to it. So this would allow you to set the scene for what is coming in this chapter or section. Then you've got like a menu one, because obviously this is for a bakery. And you've got a triple layout. So triptych layout there as well, with text underneath. If we go up to the add pages, you have 8 pages. So some of these they're not using in the sample. But we have the cover, we have the section, so those 2 are sampled. The intro is in the sample. The 2 columns of text isn't in the sample, so that's an extra one. The text with photo is, and the collage with text is, but there's another 2 there. There is a list with an image behind it, and there is a collage that's a full page collage. Now, as it happens, none of those look exactly what I want. Nowhere near. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to start making some changes with it. So obviously the text is easy to change. So this is going to be a custom compile in Scrivener. Right. Now, obviously, first thing, too much text, or the text is a bit on the big side. So let's take that down until it can fit. Right, and we probably don't need that as a capital I, do we? There we go. Is it the basics? Not really. No. It's complicated, but I'll leave it at the basics. Right, so section 1. If I'm going to have multiple sections, then this is where you put the title for these. So let's say this is the basics. And I'm going to put in some explanation here. So, what is compile? And then I would put an explanation of what compile is, and I'm quite happy for that to go on there. Let's pretend I've done it, or you're going to sit here watching me type all night, and that's not good. Right, this is probably the kind of layout I'm looking for if I'm going to explain a particular compile setting. But this isn't going to work because this presupposes that the images are portrait and mine aren't, the landscape. So almost there, not quite. Do I see myself using this? Probably not. But I might do if what I'm doing is showing you what a compiled page looks like. So it's a maybe on that, but it's a definite no on this one. Oh, Patricia's got a question. You went to the Apple apps on the iPad, started to re-download pages. It said you needed to purchase it. They're included in the... They were. Make sure you're logged into the right account. But other than that, Pages is free. Pages is totally free. So, no, you shouldn't be seeing that at all. One of two situations would apply. Either you have it included with a purchase now, or you have in the past, and you say you've used it before, then no, just make sure it's on the right account. But no, you shouldn't be prompted to pay for it. So what I want to do with this is, if I'm going to include the basics up here and I'm going to explain it, that would probably say, this is what compile is, read the details. If I want the details, then I could do with adding in a page where I explain the details, and that would work nicely. So maybe one of those would be better than that, in which case I can just get rid of that. And now I've got this one. So I'm going from the basics into here. So this would have to say something like the basics of Scrivener compile. And I would then put the text in there, which I'm not going to waste time with. But this is my biggest problem. Not there. So I could do with changing that. Now, one thing I can do in here is actually go in and change it in terms of I could start scaling this, and mine would probably be, let me do that. No, it's, I'd have to go up here into there. Oh, what are you doing with me? Arrange. Nope, it's the image. Nope, not let me do that either. Well, I could make some changes with that, but this isn't the way to do it because I'll show you the images that I'm going to be working with. So the images that I've got, we have coming up later, last session, is compile. And I have created a set of compile settings for Patricia that meet every one of her requirements. So I've taken screenshots of what they look like. So the first one is showing you that in the section layouts for the section, you need to look at this, and in this you need to look at that. So I've got a whole range of these, and I need to then put what each one looks like. So I'm going to need multiple pages with a big image on the page because it isn't going to fit into here. So what I can do at this point, before I make any changes to this, is just like in Keynote, you have the option to edit. And in this case, it's the page template. So if I click on there, it goes out to the page templates. And this is the nearest you'll see to Keynote. You have the layouts on the left-hand side, and then you have the details in the middle. So this is the nearest. But just in case I ever do want that, it's probably a better idea to duplicate that one. And then I've got text with photo copy. What I'll then do with that is rename it. And it is text with photo, but in this case, it's going to be a landscape photo. So I've now created a completely new custom layout, but this doesn't look anything like I want it to look right now. So what I'm going to do to make sure that I've got this right is I'm going to drag and drop one of my images into it. That's got to look right, and it doesn't look right. I don't think we particularly need that, or if we do, we don't need it there. So let's have a look at it. We have two things there, so I'm going to move that out of the way. This thing we do need, and we need it as big as possible, but not cropped. So in keeping with how things like Clarify worked, I'm going to move this down the bottom. And this is going to be my image, but it's completely wrong at the moment in terms of shape. But if I right click on that and say reset the mask, it now shows me the entire image, and I can just scoot that down to as big as I can get it on here, whilst leaving some room for text. And I think that's probably as big as I'm going to get it. So what I'm going to do with this is move it up, which gives me even more room. And that leaves my text at the bottom. And I'm going to put that down below the text. And either stretch it out so it's the width of that image. What I could do in there is make that into 2 columns. So in my text, in my layout, I could make that 2 columns and then it's easier to read. Whether that's wise or not is going to depend on how much text I'm going to have, which we won't know at this point. Alternatively, you could make that a little bit smaller. So the smaller I make that and move it up, then that gives me scope here to expand the text. Other option I've got, of course, is to change that text and make it smaller. So it's 16 at the moment. If I make that 14, that's more than enough to read, and it gives me enough of a space. So this I'm not going to need, so I'm going to get rid of that. And that is my new layout. This is the layout that I'm going to use for steps in a tutorial. Okay. Right, then we're good to go with that. Now, before I do that, this image here, you can, in here, in Format Advanced, define as a media placeholder, which it already is. So the reason that you would do that is so you can drag and drop images onto it. So I'm going to click Done. And down here, that's not the page I'm going to use anymore. I'm going to go to Add Page. And in there, there's my text with landscape photo. It's got this in it, but you can see it's only a sample. It's got this down here, which means, and I'm going to get number 12 and drag number 12 in, that I can drag and drop that in and it replaces it. So we would want that to be number 1. So I'm going to drop number 1 into it. What I would then do here, this is going to be, it would make more sense if this one is the basics and I explain the basics there. And then I'm going to come on. We don't need that one, so we can just delete that page. But when we're on this page, let's add another section in, because this is going to be section number 2. And this one is going to be Patricia's settings. So let's get section 2 in there. And here, Patricia's, and I think it was competition. Competition settings. Again, that's going to need to stretch or be smaller, one or the other. So let's grab hold of all of that and make it smaller so it fits. There we go. Right. And then I'm going to go into that. Or am I? Wouldn't it be better if I had one of these? So I can actually duplicate that page, pop that one between the new section. This isn't going to be number 1. It's going to be section 2. We know what it is because we've got that there. So let's take that. And it's not going to be the basics of compile. It is going to be, let's paste that in, Patricia's competition settings. So what I probably do here is actually have an image of what that looks like. Handily, I have one of those. I don't know whether it's actually going to let me use it. And that's because it's a PDF. So I'm opening up a PDF. And this is what Patricia's settings are going to look like. So I'm not sure. I'll tell you what. Let's just do the quickest way of doing it on the planet. Let's draw around that as a sample of what that's going to look like. That's going to open up in Snagit behind it. I will get that out of the way. And I will drag and drop that image in here. There's the image. So that's what the sample's going to look like. And then this bit, which is the text, I will take back there. We can leave that on it. We can leave the background behind it if we want, or take it away. Completely up to you. Right, in the style, we could add a border around it. That's a bit harsh. But we could change the colour. If we change the colour, it wouldn't look quite so bad, would it? So something like that. Maybe make it a bit thinner, just so you know that's the sample. And then we've got the steps it takes to put that together, what that looks like. So up here, I'd probably want this to be step 1. And this would be setting the section layout. So each one would have what you're setting. So it's the section layout, and you are setting it for section at this point. So section layout is on the left, that one is the section, and it's the formatting. So it's section and then formatting. And then I would put the instructions underneath. Then I would rinse and repeat. So add a page for the second step. And again, it's going to be landscape. It adds it in. This one's going to be step 2. And what were we doing in step 2? Let's go and find the image. There's the compile. There's step 2. Bring that in. It will replace it. And now we are on to the section layouts. So section layouts. We are in chapter heading. And within chapter heading, we are looking at the formatting. So we've got the whole breadcrumb trail at the top of where we actually are. And then what this text would do is explain what we've set it to and why. And we would carry on for all 12 steps. There are 12 steps to that. At the end here, you could, again, take screenshots of what that's going to look like. So if I drag that one in, it shows you what that looks like. And if you've got different settings for different things, then you could put them in here. Even if you are doing this just for yourself, it's worthwhile. Because future you will thank past you for having the foresight to make a note of it. Because there's nothing worse than going back to your compile settings and not having a clue how you did certain things. She said from bitter experience. So do take the time. I know it takes time to document it. You don't have to document it to this degree. This is as a demo. But what I will do, I will finish this off and then Patricia will get the instructions as well. But at this point, what I'm going to do is compile this to a fixed EPUB. Hopefully you can see why fixed EPUB is so important, because there's no way you would be able to do this and have a Kindle interpret the 2 columns of text and the headings, the colours, the images. It just couldn't do it. That was why iBooks Author was so fantastic. But, you know, it's long gone. Now, see, if this was iBooks Author, I could put a video in as well of how to set it up. That would be amazing. Sadly, no. You can put videos in Pages, but there's lots of things that were in iBooks Author that you can't do in here, unfortunately. One of the things was it was in a Zoom image. It was fantastic, but I mustn't reminisce because I get upset. So what we need to do with this is export it in such a way that it's usable in for consumption. So one option, and before we go any further, is that you can export. And obviously we're going to do the EPUB thing, but you do have the option to export to a PDF if you want. I mustn't call it untitled. Right, we'll call it compile. And we will put that in the data for tonight, and then we will open it up in PDF Expert. Right, it's having a think about it. I think it might have finished. Right, and that's what we get. So I didn't change the cover, but I did change the text. And what you get is a beautiful layout PDF. So for most people, that will probably be enough. A PDF would do you nicely, but we can do that better. We can make it an EPUB. Okay, so let's go and have a look at that. Let's get that out of the way. Right, so for an actual EPUB, now if the PDF looks that good, why would you do the EPUB? Well, if you want to sell this, then Kindle is going to want an EPUB. Even if it is a fixed layout one, they're going to want an EPUB. So we'll go to EPUB. Right, in the EPUB settings, because this isn't saved, the title is at the moment untitled. So we had custom, Scrivener, compile. Now, you wouldn't need to do that if you'd saved the file. And I'm probably running without a safety net by not saving the file. Then you need the author of it. And then you've got the option to say that there's no book cover at all, or you can use the first page as the book cover. And that's the default. Alternatively, if you have a front cover that somebody has created for you, then you can just choose an image. Now, you'll notice in the layout that unlike last time, where it was set to reflowable and we had the option in the radio buttons to choose fixed layout, we don't anymore. It's a fixed layout. That's because this one can't be reverse engineered to be reflowable. The layout is too complex for that. Then you've got advanced options. So these may be hidden, but I have opened them up. And this allows you to suggest a category for it. It's probably computers and technology, isn't it? Let's put it in there. This isn't so important if you're just doing it for yourself. Okay. So we've got a language of English because we're not Zoom apps, are we? No, we don't want to bamboozle poor me with 13,000 languages. Then we've got whether we view it as a single page or 2-page. And most of the time with fixed layout, you go for a single page because at the point of design, you're designing a single page. Each individual page is designed individually. But you could have it where you see the 2 pages if that makes sense for the content. Then you've got your table of contents. So if you want to generate a table of contents, you can do that. And why it's important to embed the fonts is that you need those fonts to travel with you. If you don't, and you've used a font, I use one called Stingray, and there's another one called Zapfino. They're really quirky layout things. So if you think about the fonts that we use in MacBites, you would need to embed those fonts, or when the user gets the file at the other end, they're not going to see it the way that you designed it. So while that is hidden under advanced, it's certainly worth putting a tick in it. Right, so all we need to do is click next, and we are putting it in the data, custom Scrivener compile. We will export that and it creates an EPUB. Now on my system, EPUBs are set to open by default with better zip, which won't help anybody, not in this circumstance. So I use an app called CLICKABLE, which is free, that lets me view an EPUB. So it's starting up CLICKABLE. It's having a think about it. There we go. So that's CLICKABLE. All it is like a library that I can import books of all kinds of formats into. And I can either use it as just a library to read them, or I can actually use the tools that are in CLICKABLE to interact with them and do certain things with them. But all I need to do with this one is just open it. And let's have a look at the book.
Pete says, could you create an EPUB in Affinity Publisher?
Not yet, Pete. It would be grand if you could. It's the biggest oversight in version 1. And it's because they never intended Affinity Publisher to do anything but create print layouts. They didn't even include the ability to add a link, a clickable link. That was the first thing I told them. I think it was the day the beta was released. I'm like, where's the PDF link option? It's like, no, we've not got that. I said, I can't use it till you have. And they actually added it about 2 weeks later. And to say it looked a bit unpolished was an understatement. But no, there is not an option to directly create an EPUB in Affinity Publisher. There are a couple of workarounds. One would be to export it to a format that you can get into Scrivener and do it from there. But in terms of layout, no, you're not going to get a great layout with it. Not at the moment. So here's our book open in the viewer. Now let's make that full screen. And that's our cover. I'm going to use the page down to go down a page. Our layout looks a bit strange there, doesn't it? I don't know why that yellow thing should be further across. Let's have a look. Oh, that's definitely wrong. What has gone wrong with this? Another one that worked in rehearsals. I am not sure what it's doing. Can you see what it's doing with the image? I think that was right. Don't move it. That was right. I think this is CLICKABLE. There we go. Right. So I've got the window the right size. So it looks fine. Right, and there is our first layout. I would say with that on my screen, could be a calibre issue, but the numbers that I've got on it where it says 1 and 2, where I would then underneath put 1, do this, 2, do that, look quite orange, and they weren't, they were red. So there's some interpretation with the graphic going on there. But you can see there is step 1 and there is our step 2. And as we go through, there is the image that we added, and you've retained the layout. So it's very, very different than a reflowable. So when you're working in Pages, step 1, choose the correct template to start with, because you'll make your life a whole lot easier down the line. Peter loves Page Plus, and he's not going to be moved from it, are you? I can't believe that it is 3 years old now. Is it its second birth? I think it is, isn't it? And they've not added that. But of course, there's usually a major update in February, and I don't think they can put off the version 2 for much longer. And it would seem a good thing to add to be worth a paid-for upgrade to go version 2 and add EPUB. Having said that, in terms of it's about time there was a paid update, if you think about it, Affinity Designer was released in 2015, and for 6 years we've had free updates. There's going to be people out there absolutely distraught, isn't there, when I've got to pay money. We'll just remind them that it's better than a subscription. And if you've listened to MacBites this week, you'll know the extent to which I heartily mean that. So there is our fixed layout EPUB. So all I actually need to do to finish that off is make sure there's 12 steps in it and the text is added. So I will do that in the week with the data for Patricia, and we'll see the finished thing next week. But that's the principle of it. It's that easy to do. Right, if you've got any questions about that, stick them in there. I'll save that now because I hadn't even saved it, had I? Naughty, naughty. Scrivener compile. And it's in today's data, so that's fine, because if I put it in iCloud, I'll probably never see it again. You know how I feel about iCloud. Right, let's get back into there. Okay. Oh, Peter's got Mac and PC with Page Plus and the Affinity Suite. I'm glad you enjoyed that, Peter. Right, something you are going to love. I did. Oh, I did. I got quite excited about this. More than is good for a lady in my condition. That sounds like I'm pregnant, doesn't it? Which I'm not. Somebody actually said that. Did you notice that? Kath. Yeah, no, that's so not happening. If it's not got 4 legs and fur, I am not qualified to look after it. Right, we are going to look at digital asset management. We are going to look at this. Oh, Kim has heard subscription maths. Yeah, it was horrific. It was horrific. If you've not heard it, it was Photo Magico. And I was doing a comparison between what they want to charge me today against the last, I think it was 9 years. Don't do that. It was scary. Right, so digital asset management. This is the holy grail. We have been asking Affinity to do a digital asset manager in the ilk of Bridge for years. They have said they are contemplating it. So it may be on the horizon, but if it is, I would suggest it's going to be years rather than months, because they still haven't done Affinity Publisher for iPad yet. I can't see that appearing before WWDC, because they do like to announce it at WWDC. But in the meanwhile, we have a whole range of asset managers available to us, including Adobe Bridge. But the one that I'm going to be looking at tonight, and we have looked at a few others. We've looked at PicSave, we've looked at Pixar, we've looked at Ember, and we've looked at Bridge. And they all have their advantages. You know, they're good in certain circumstances, and then they go somewhere to die. They're just not supported for long enough. I think it's the kind of thing that people don't particularly want to pay for. They feel that it should be free because Bridge is free. And if you've used PaintShop Pro, the Bridge equivalent in there, the file browser thing, is free. That's a problem. But I found one called Eagle. If you want to follow along, it is en.eagle.cool, which is a cool web address. Right. I'm just going to go in and show you. Right, so let's get in here. And the first thing I'm going to show you is Adobe Bridge. No, not Handbrake. No, not Handbrake. Bridge. Right, there is the very latest version of Adobe Bridge. And right in front of you is my biggest problem. If it's an Affinity Publisher file, if it's an Affinity Designer file, if it's an Affinity Photo file, or even an Omnigraphal file, or anything else, I can't see it. If it's an image file, I will. If it's a video file, I will. But if it's pages, numbers, keynote, not going to see it. It's going to look like that. And that is my biggest problem with Bridge. So while it's great if I'm working with the MacBites chapter art, because all of these are PNGs, it's not quite so hot with anything else. That's the problem with Bridge. That's the problem we are trying to solve, which is where Eagle comes in. There's Eagle. Right. I have created, so let me fold these up so we're not looking at all of that. I have created in here a library at the very, very top level called MacBites. So this up here is my library and it's called MacBites. You'll see where it's stored. So it's on Dropbox, which means I can use it on multiple machines because it's on a shared server. You can create new libraries, you can switch libraries, you can merge libraries. So you have multiple libraries. If you're using Bridge, you don't really have that concept in Bridge, because what Bridge is doing is not really creating a library. Bridge is looking at files in your file system. So in a way, Bridge is doing very little more than the Finder. Now, the good news with that is, let's get to Eagle in here. This is the Finder, and those are the same files we've just looked at in Bridge, but now we can see them. So the Finder itself does give you previews of Affinity Publisher, Omnigraphal, pages, numbers, keynote, you name it. It's just Bridge that doesn't. So in essence, what we need is Finder with way more features, and that's what we've got in here. So my first job was to create a library, and I thought, well, I'll just create the MacBites one. Because what I could do with doing, so this is Wednesday, I could do with accessing the chapter markers. That would be great. So what I did in here was I then made a folder for my chapter markers. And I dragged and dropped from Adobe Bridge into here. And I was blown away. Now, you might be thinking, yeah, but these are just PNGs. Indeed, they are. But what blew me away? It's the number one requirement I have for a digital asset manager. Those chapter markers are in a certain order. They start with the show art, and then it goes on to the welcome. And you'll see that the chapter markers are CM_ because they're chapter markers. But welcome would not come before backbites anywhere apart from in the show. So we start with welcome, we have backbites, we go on to chatbites. And then we have these, and these are optional depending on if we're doing it or not, including shopping with Elaine. But we also have Mac Love Bites and Marooned and After Hours. And none of these are being displayed alphabetical. What order are they in? They're in the order that I dragged them in from Bridge. That was me done. I was in love. Because I need to be able to organise these manually. If I wanted chat bites to before back bites, I want to be able to just drag and drop and it remember that. And it does. So before we go any further, it was perfect. You can, of course, change all of that. So if you wanted to order by, you can order by them alphabetically or whatever you want. But manual is key to me. As far as I'm concerned, if a digital asset manager can't sort them manually, then forget it. Because I need them in the order that I use them in. Absolutely perfect. So another thing was, as I started now, the view that I've got here, these look quite big. I think I have 6 thumbnails across, but I've got my screen quite small. But the thing that got me was, as I was moving down, notice that these 5 are smaller. And then it goes back to 4, which is interesting. And it's so you end up with a full view, that you don't have one thumbnail missing at the end. It realised with that that it was going to be one thumbnail on its own if it didn't add one more to the next row up, which I just thought was genius. So you'll get a nice clean layout with this as well. Now, obviously, this was the chapter markers. This was the first thing that I did. What I needed to do with the chapter markers from there was drag and drop them into the edit of MacBites. So what that looks like, let's go and find it. No, we don't need you. 153, there we go. So that's what the show looks like. And what I need to drag and drop them to do is drag and drop them into here. So if we click on this, you can see that's the point we go into chat bites, and then we went into a focus, and then we did the hardware review. And each one of these needs a different thumbnail, and that's the thumbnail you see on your player. So I had to be able to drag and drop them out and drag and drop them straight onto there, and that totally worked as well. So it was a yes at that point. The next thing I needed to do was then test what file formats it supported, because we've seen what these look like in Bridge. That was not good. So what I'm going to do is, I've got an inbox here, so we can do it there. So I can either import folders or I can install an extension. And you'll see here, it says supports up to 90 file formats. The ones it mentions are things like Sketch and PSD and Illustrator. It doesn't mention the most important ones, which are all of these. So let's add in. Why have I got two of these now? Things are multiplying here. Right. What I'll do is we'll grab the Excel Guide to Charts Affinity Publisher and drop it in. And you can see straight away we've got a preview. And at the top, we've got an icon telling us what file format that is, in addition to all of this information on the right-hand side. So some of the information comes in automatically. It's previewing it and it pulls out some colours. And we can literally just click on one of these to copy them. Amazing. It's picked this up as the title. And if we want to, we can add tags in here. So you click in there and you can add tags. Now it's even suggesting some tags for us. So it's picked up charts and Excel and guide from the title of the file, and it's picked inbox from the folder. So if you think about that in relation to the chapter markers, if we did the same in here and clicked on tag, it has picked CM because it's in the name, and markers and chapter because it's over in the folder name. Now, I haven't added any tags to anything right now, but I think it would make sense with the Excel one, if I'm going to have content about Excel, to tag it as Excel. I can also put notes in there if I want to, and a URL for it. So if this is something that I've published, and afterwards I come back to it, and it's like, well, I know where it is on the web, but I don't know what I called it, then I can actually do a search for the URL. Would you bother? It depends on how much you care about future you, doesn't it? It's that. Then you've got the folders that it's in. So at the moment, it's actually in the inbox folder. You can move it from there if you need to. You've then got a rating, so you can give it a star rating. It shows you the dimensions, it shows you the size, it shows you the file type and the date it was created and the date it was modified. You also get the option to export. So you can actually export that from in here, because the difference between this and Bridge is when you drag and drop it in here, you are dragging it to the Eagle library, the one that's on Dropbox. Bridge just is like Finder. It just looks, it provides you a view of your content. It doesn't import it anywhere. It keeps a cache in the local folder. It does not import, but this does import. Right. At the bottom, you can see trial expires in. I haven't bought it yet. I would normally have done, but it's Black Friday next week, so it would be silly to buy it now. I'll wait and see what happens. But trust me, this is being purchased. Right, so that's an individual file. Right, I have other files. I have the Brooklyn Circle Weekend book, which is also an Affinity Publisher file, and I can increase the size of this thus. Does adding all these amazing apps and software slow down the system? No, it doesn't. Renee's loving this. I thought you'd quite like that. Is it an alternative to Finder? It's a digital asset manager, so you could consider it an alternative to Finder, but it's an app in its own right, an app in its own, like you would have a vector editor and a bitmap editor. A digital asset manager allows you to manage assets in the best way possible. The first criteria of that is that you can see the file, which is where Bridge is falling down with the Affinity apps. Now, the Affinity apps must be exposing enough of the file type for Eagle to hook into it. So it's not impossible for Bridge to do that. They've chosen not to. So it's an app in its own right for managing all your assets. Oh, Renee's liking the automatic tags and colour picking. Right, well, I'm going to add in a few other files now. So that one's a balloon frame, which is also, that's an Affinity Designer one. And you can see what it's doing with the settings that I've got up here about how it's showing it. So do I want it justified, which means it fills the space in. But you can have waterfall, a grid, or just a list if you want. So that one's an Affinity Designer one. I've got another Affinity Designer one that is huge. And I just love what it does with that. That is the source file for the thumbnails. And if you look at that, just look at the width of it, because it is that wide with that many artboards. It's genius. Now, Jonathan, I think he's probably asleep by now, but he'll catch up in the morning. This was Jonathan's moment, because Jonathan sent us, if you remember, Jonathan did a star turn on Marooned, and he told us all about, was it Hanukkah? I think it was, wasn't it? And he sent in an Affinity Designer file. So there we go. Oh, what fun we had. So we're adding in Jonathan's. So what else have I got here? I've got a couple of other Affinity Publisher files. So here's this one for the gala dinner. And I've got the bingo cards that we did. So I've got 2 different colours of bingo cards. Let's drag these in. I have not been able to manage these by looking at the contents. There's just no way that I can do that before this app. Right, that's the Affinity ones. I think I've got all the Affinity ones at that point. And I do believe I had one in here that didn't make it, which I'm now going to want. So where did that disappear from? Was it in there? It wasn't a PDF. Let me try and find this file. Not seeing it. It could be somewhere else. There were 2 places I had these files. Anyway, let's add in. I now need to know which one this is. Let's go back to this view. Right, what I'm trying to do, I've got some files here. These are the files that I've been working with. So that is the EPUB. I have no idea what it would do with an EPUB. Shall we have a look? What would it do if I dragged in an EPUB? Well, because it's set to better zip, it's giving me the zip icon. If I set that to something else, it might do better than that. Right. We also had the Pages document that we've just created for that EPUB. So what happens if we drag that in? Lovely preview. And it's got the Pages icon on it. So it supports Pages files as well. What else do I have in here that we haven't already used? Right. How about this one? This one's a good one. This is genuinely the plan I drew for our extension. This was when they built it wrong, wasn't it, Mike?
It was.
And I said, hold me beer. And I opened OmniGraffle on my iPad and I said, this is what we need. So in essence, what they'd done was that door that's the 84 centimetres wide bit, they'd put in the middle. And I said, how am I going to have my table on the 96 centimetres bit? So I actually drew that in OmniGraffle, and it can preview an OmniGraffle one. Kim says, just to make sure, can it sync across multiple computers? Yes, it can. The data is stored in Dropbox or any other cloud service you want to use. It supports Box, it supports OneDrive. I guess it would support pCloud because it's only a WebDAV thing, isn't it? And it would support anything that was mounted via Cloud Mounter or Expand Drive. So yes, it synchronises across multiple computers. So that one is a really unusual one. OmniGraffle files are visual, as you can see. In fact, that one, and I can, of course, open it from here, get a nice preview of it from there. And you can see that that's got 11 pages in it. But that there is navigating not through the actual pages of the document, it's looking at the preview. But if I were to open that, so let's open with the default app, which is OmniGraffle, which is installed. You can see, do you know, I'm not an architect, but when I look at this, it was obvious what I wanted. So it's previewing based on the side elevation, which is the first page in here. Then I had a different side elevation. I'm not quite sure why I had two side elevations. I've got the one from the other end. So this was the one with the downpipe that didn't end up being there, did it? But that was what we were aiming for. Then there was the front elevation. Front elevation with windows indicating which way they're opening. Thus. Guess what? That's exactly what it looks like. I don't know if he was relieved that I'd produced it and said that's what I want, but that's our extension. That was what they built it from. Yeah, I know. I thought they were going to design it, but no, I ended up doing it. So this kind of file would be fantastic to be able to see inside it in terms of organising it. So it's a quirky one, OmniGraffle, but it still works. Right, I think we imported that one. We've got Jonathan's. I've got an Affinity Designer file that has a transparent background, and it doesn't, it observes that. It doesn't stick a white background on it. It observes what's there. We've got a press release from Pages. So just another Pages file, but we can actually see it. We've got a Numbers file. I said to Mike, I can't remember why I did it in Numbers. That's the running order of the Munich Remembrance thing. And I remembered, I threw it together at 2 o'clock in the morning, didn't I? Because we had someone that wanted to, I think the technical term's geg in, isn't it?
Yeah.
So rather than be rude and say, no, you're not gegging in, when we turned up, I just said, here's the running order, here's the running order. No, you're not on it, never mind, here's the running order. So that's why it was done in Numbers. I needed a quick way to get a table on it. Then we've got a stage setting, which is another OmniGraffle file. So again, I can see inside and see the contents of it. I have got more Numbers files, these ones being layouts. So they're not just text like this press release. They are actually reports there. I think this one was just another Affinity publisher one, Visiting Scotland. I've got my sidebar, which is always better if I can see it because I've got different coloured ones. So that sidebar is for Affinity Publisher. And what else have we got? I think that's it. So those are the different file types that to me are just totally amazing that I can now see in here. So it's the fact that these are the files I actually use, which is genius as far as I'm concerned. Does it manage images from the internet? In what way, Renee? In what way? That it looks out to the internet for them, or that you've dragged them in? Give me some idea of what you mean. Right, so we've looked at the basics of that, but then, you know, what else can you do with it? And that really is literally just the start of it. These colours over here, as you see, when you click on it, you can find similar colour items. So if I've got anything in there, and I don't in that case, let's try this red one. No, it's not picking it up. Obviously not similar enough. Maybe the white one. There you go. Things with white in it that you could match. Interestingly in here, you can then copy the hex code. So if you wanted to take that and do something with it, you don't even have to open the file. You would like to bookmark assets from websites. I do believe I read it did that, Renee. I read that in relation to supporting YouTube videos. But hold that thought and I'll have a look. So you can copy the colours in any kind of format, and you can choose to set one particular colour as the primary colour for this particular image. So, done the entire sidebar. Could it do a screenshot of the web page and store it? Ah, well, there's an issue. Right, this is a feature that it actually has. And I had to turn it off. I turned it off because it clashed with another shortcut. But if we go into the preferences and we go to shortcuts, there are shortcuts to do all kinds of things. And one of the shortcuts was to capture a selected area, a selected window, or full screen. And I think it was that one. And the shortcut key that was there that I had to delete was Command, Option and E. And it isn't letting me add it back. Lovely. What can I do about that? Well, that worked well. Everything totally disappeared. So clearly not that one. It's not letting me add them back very, very easily. Where have you disappeared to? Come on back. Oh, come on. Let's do a weird one of these. I'm trying to find a key that's not used. There we go. Right. I'll save the changes to that and we'll do a capture something. So let's grab this on here and use that shortcut key. And it isn't playing ball. There will be an option to do that probably from in here, but it was the shortcut key that I found. So let's have a look where it may be. Import from others. Well, there you go. There's a few options. But I'm looking for the take a screen cap option, which should be in there somewhere, which I didn't use from there. Maybe not. Maybe it's only a shortcut. But yes, it can do. It can take a web page. It's obviously not Snagit, but it can do it. So I'm going to have to bring these back so I can actually see what's going on. I lost my chat then. Everything disappeared. So what has it done? Oh, crazy, crazy, crazy. I'll have to go on without the chat for a minute. Right, I can see the chat somewhere else, but I can't see it there. So yes, it can do screen caps. And it puts it straight into the system when it's done a screen cap. Right, so we'll get back to the organising of this. Once you've got content in here, you can see that it's added a filter over here because I picked white over there, right-clicked, clicked it, and then said find similar. And when it does, it applies filters to the top. So if I don't want the white one, I can take that away, but these filters remain. So if I'm looking for something with Excel, it's really nice and easy to filter from these drop downs at the top. That is just so cool. You can either turn it off like that, or once it does have something on it, you can click the red cross to get rid of it. Does Eagle have an iOS equivalent? I don't believe it does yet. This is literally just released, it's version 2. So there may be one coming, who knows. I don't believe it does. Do you want to have a quick check? I don't remember a link to it. So all of this you can even do with shapes, whether it's vertical, whether it's custom, what your ratings are, what the file types are. So you can see you've got Affinity Publisher in here, the date it was imported, unbelievably. If you're looking for a certain size, you can do that. You can even search the notes that you add and the URL. So the filtering and finding capabilities are just amazing.
No, just Mac and Windows according to
Yeah, I should have said it is cross-platform as well, which is good, isn't it? They do have a huge range of file formats that they support, as I've said, but to me, the most important ones are the Affinity ones because literally nothing else supports them. None of the asset managers I've used has ever supported them. Right, so that's working within a particular... I mean, I've just imported these things and worked in there. But I decided I would stress test it. Okay, really stress test it. So as you can see, show art, 1,260 files. Really, there they are. Right, what we're looking at is the JPEGs or PNGs, and there's also PDFs and SVGs of later ones. But for every show of MacBites that has show art, there's a fistful of them, as you can see, and they're different sizes for the different things that we use them for. You're probably not going to need the 300 by 300 much these days, but historically those are the ones we've used. So obviously there are in here about 80 to 90 shows that have got all of these images in them, the show art images, including going right to the end, and you can see how fast it gets there and loads them in. The full Monty hits the fan. But we do have another one to add, so we could add those for a start. Now, these live on my file system, but obviously I have imported them into Eagle. But on my file system, I'll see what mood it's in today. Oh, you're in a good mood. Right. This is what they look like on my file system. Each one is in its own folder. And that's so I can quickly get there and manage it like these. So this is the latest one. But I didn't import them in their folders, as it were. They are all in the show art. Now, the problem with that is, if I'm looking, this is a problem I have had for months and months. If I'm looking for a particular size of image, it's like, I need just the ones that are PNGs and just the ones that are 1080 by 720. And obviously I can see that that one there happens to be PNG and it's 1280 by 720. I can decide what information I show in here. So if I right click on this, you can, it's always down here, there is a way to show different metadata. I'm not sure if it's there or in the library, but you can show different metadata in here. But that's not what I'm looking for. I need a quick way to get hold of just the images that I need. Now, obviously I can filter. So if I'm up here and I'm thinking, oh, I need MacBites episode 100, that will filter it straight down to 100. It is importing it, Deb. All these images are importing. There has been a request that they allow to just view the files where they are in situ, but at the moment it's importing it. So I can filter it down for episode 100 really quickly, and from there I can see that that is my 1280, but that's the PNG one. So I could do that by just filtering up here. But this is something that I need to do frequently. So this is where the files live. They are in this show art folder over there. You can create new folders and generally work around with them. You can add it to the quick thing. You can change the icon. You can change the colour. So if I wanted that to be orange to indicate to me that that is MacBites, I can do that as well. My inbox here, I could change the icon so that actually looked like an inbox, which is uber cool considering, I mean, yes, you can do that. But to me, I think that's pretty cool in an image app, that it now looks like a proper inbox. So there's lots of things that you can do there. These are all 4 of these are just standard folders. You can from there do an export, and you can do an export in Eagle format, or you can just export whatever to the computer. And you can even show subfolder content if they're all in subfolders. So that doesn't solve my problem. Although I can do it, it doesn't solve my problem. My problem is to just see PNG files that are 1280 pixels. That's it. Well, we've got folders. We've got 4 folders, but you can create smart folders. And I have 2 smart folders. One is show art that is 1280 by 720 and PNG in format. And if I click that, it filters everything that's in here, and you see how quick it was? Now I've got just the full quality images, the 1280 by 720 are the ones that I want. Love that. About 6-8 months ago, no, it'll be 12 months ago now, I switched to PowerPoint, and PowerPoint struggles with PNGs, PDFs. PDF is vector, so it'll scale, which is great, but it struggles with them. It put a box on Wolfie's head, if you remember. So I started making SVG versions. So I also have a smart folder that shows show art at 1280 by 720 and just SVGs. Like that. So these are the ones that have an SVG version. So I can see those as well. Now, I also use these when we publish the actual show notes to the website, and they are not that size. So if I go to the smart folders and I click to add a new smart folder, what I would want here is show art, and the size of it would be 795 by 500, and these would be PNGs, and these are the versions that I use for uploading to the blog. So I always put the names line up, I always put the zeros in as well. Right, then you put the criteria in. Okay. So if any of the following are true, right, so the name contains, well, the name is going to contain show art. So let's get that in for a start. That filters it out. That shows me everything that's got that name in it. Right, I need to be a little bit more precise though. I need it where it contains 795 by 500. That should filter it out even more. Only it's not, is it? What are you doing there? Oh, I know what the problem is. Right, what's the problem? And that is that in this case, what we're saying is any of these are true. So we do have some that have got this in, and we do have some that have got show art in. What we need to say is where all of these are true. So that it is called show art and it has 795 in it as well. We're nearly there, but not quite. Yes, it's $29.95. I don't know whether it'll be on offer for Black Friday. If I hear of anything, I will let you know. That's why I'm still in the trial. Otherwise, I would have paid for it.
Patricia's got a couple of questions.
Okay, where are they? Does it create a duplicate image or file when it imports? Yes, it does. So it leaves your files alone where they are. You, of course, could elect to delete them from where they are and trust Eagle to look after them, or you could just put those away somewhere as your backups. Can it grab from an external drive? And what happens if it imports into Eagle? What happens when it's disconnected? Well, if you're dragging something in from an external drive, it's going to import it into the Eagle library. So what happens when you disconnect the external drive? Nothing at all, because it's pulling from its internal database. How come the EPUB isn't showing properly, not supported? It's either not supported or it's the fact that on my system, it's mapped to better zip. I'd have to have a look at that. I find it surprising if EPUB isn't supported. I really do. I did have, let's have a look. I had a MindNode map of this. So let's whip that over there. And what I had in this thing, so I need it full screen, I'm going to need it bigger than I've got. It supports Sketch, Figma, Photoshop, Illustrator, Adobe XD, InDesign, Affinity Designer, Affinity Photo, Affinity Publisher, Cinema 4D, AutoCAD, SketchUp, CorelDRAW, Clip Studio Paint, YouTube, Vimeo, PowerPoint, Word, Excel, Keynote, Numbers, Pages, eDraw Max, MindNode, Xmind. Oh, that's going to please Tracy, isn't it? Was it Xmind? No, it's the iThoughts, wasn't it? I don't know if it supports iThoughts, but it does support Xmind and MindNode. OmniGraffle, Principle, Pixelmator Pro, PDF, GIF, SVG, JPEG, PNG, TGA, DDS, Bitmap, icons and icon files, RAW, Base64, MP3, MP4, fonts, FBX and OBJ. So it doesn't mention EPUB, so maybe it doesn't support EPUB. But we do have the source of our EPUB, and that is supported. So we're not doing badly here, but we still have a way to go, because it's bringing back 2 of everything, which we don't particularly want. So I need to add another criteria, and this time it's where the name contains, or is it? No, it's probably going to be the type of file. So where the type of file is, and I want PNGs. And now that is the filter that I want. So I can create that, and all I need to do is switch to it in here. So these are my 1280s, these are my 795s, and these are my SVGs. And that way, instead of having 100 and however many folders, all my assets are in the show art folder, but I can use these smart folders for persistent searches. So things that I want to access to on a regular basis, I can create smart folders for. Right, what else have we got here? I think that's probably about as far as I wanted to take it this week, because it's quite overwhelming, isn't it? So it can do a lot more. I will show you the rest that it can do next time. But in the meanwhile, I will keep an eye out on the price. I don't think the price is bad. It's not a subscription, so you're looking at about $30-ish. There may or may not be a sale on Black Friday. If there is, I will let you know. Right, Renee is saying as long as the library's in the cloud, the internal storage should not be affected. Yes, that's exactly right, Renee. It does put it in the cloud, so let me have a look at that for you. So mine's in Dropbox. So I do believe, did I put it in application support? I did. So there's my application support, and there is the MacBites library. So you can see exactly what you get there. So the images are in here. So if we do that, we can see, oh, there's 0.5 gig of them. But that's because I've got so many different images. But although that is in there and it says library, you can also see that in here, each image has the actual image and it has some metadata. And the metadata is the rating you've given it, any tags, any notes, all of that. I will show you how to hook it up to the cloud, Kim. Might make a note of that. I'll create a new one, and I'll tell you what, I'll even put it on pCloud, and we'll see if pCloud works, or if it throws its toys out of the pram. But I know Dropbox is supported, and I know OneDrive is supported. But even if Eagle died a sad death, you would still be able to get to your images because they're in this images folder, and you can see, well, they're not in a great format to extract one by one. The images themselves are there, and you can get to them, so you wouldn't lose access to it. I have a lot of images in there, hence it being 500 and odd. Was it meg or gig? It was huge, wasn't it? Oh, it was 748 meg, so quite a bit. But it's not sluggish in use at all. And once it's uploaded, and it's keeping a local copy as well. So once you go to the other machine, and I'll show that as well, Kim. I'll show it on 2 machines. Once it's hooked up, once you add them here and it synchronises the other end, it's going to be as fast on the other machine as it was on the machine that you added them on, which is just great. So the cloud bit, I actually think of as a bonus. Now, obviously, I've got a lot of cloud storage. The one thing with this is, obviously, the more you add to it in the library, the more cloud storage you're going to need. But the fact that at the top level it can use different libraries means that you could use different cloud services to put those libraries on to spread the load. But I will make a note of that, and we will do that next week as well. There are fantastic videos. There's a whole range of videos on how it actually works and what the features are. So the help section is actually way better than many, many others that I've seen. Hello, Ted. Ted says, hello everyone, been recently discovered after hours watching the episodes earlier on with Devon Think, Vivaldi and Craft, Affinity Photo next. I'm glad you're enjoying them, Ted, that's fantastic, and it's great that you're with us. Oh, hello, everyone's saying great and welcome to the MacBites family. We are indeed a family here, and we do have a fantastic time. Right, okay, so we'll get on to part 2 of that next week. Right, what's up next here? Oh, I know. To get it, you need to go to en.eagle.cool. At least try the trial. It's definitely worth it. It's the best digital asset manager I've found on the Mac. Do you know I nearly bought... What was that one called? The one that was £200.
Yeah, and then...
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah.
I was literally going to buy it. It was coming up.
Something C, wasn't it?
No, that was AC/DC. There was another one, and this was many years ago. And I tried it, and it was like, but it's £200. And in the end, I thought, you know what, just buy it. So I went to the website with my fast melting credit card next to me. And I looked at the top corner, and I thought, what gives? And the company had sold out to Microsoft that day. And Microsoft had put a Microsoft logo on it. And it was like, screech to a halt. I'm not paying £200 and giving it to Microsoft. They'll kill it. And that's exactly what they did. Whoa, that was close. If I'd bought it the day before, £200. But that one was good. But I would say this one's the best I've seen. The fact it can manage the Affinity app assets is all I need. Now I am cooking on gas, as we say in the UK. Right, okay. So... Yes.
Extensis portfolio. Extensis portfolio, wasn't it?
Was it? Was that the one?
Possibly.
Oh, it could have been. It could have been Debbie.
Debbie S has just mentioned that.
I do remember that. I did try that. I think I had it on Windows. This one was a Mac one. I'm going to have to dig out what it was. But honestly, it was like 5 minutes and it would have been too late. I'd have spent the money on it. Oh, no. Oh, Kim's got 4 terabytes in pCloud. So, right, we will try the pCloud thing and make sure that we can see it working in there. Right, let me catch up on the chat. Tracy's quite right there, Ted. We actually have a credit card in an ice block in the freezer. We actually had a picture of that, didn't we?
Yeah.
Just to cool it off. But we haven't bought anything for at least, well, no, that's not true.
It's no longer in the freezer because we needed the freezer space.
We did. Right. Oh, why isn't that in the right place? Okay, I'm going to do the freebie thing, which is some Christmas treats. It's Christmas PNGs that you can... Now, they don't come like that. Each of those was individual, including the knitting thing. I've collaged them together, but it's a whole range of clip art for Christmas. I think it was from Shutterstock, but Mike's got the link. So do download those and enjoy. Right. I've got weird things going on here, Mike. I've got 2 sets of some of the slides. Oh, never mind. Right, so Mike's going to be showing his iPad.
Do you want this?
Or that's the plan. Not just yet. Right. That was the plan. But for that plan to work, or all the stuff that disappeared off the screen, I'm going to have to get it back. So I can do that and get over to you. So let me know when you're ready. Oh, that looks ready.
I am
Are you
ready.
ahead of yourself?
Yeah, I need to press record.
Do that then, and then I'll pass over to you. There
Right, I'm ready.
Right, and we're over with you.
I'll start. Right. Numbers, pivot tables, iPad. So, something that Excel doesn't do. I'll say no more. Right, okay, I'm going to take you through using Excel, no, not using Excel, using numbers on the iPad for creating pivot tables. So I've opened up numbers on the iPad. I've opened up a file with a table in it. There we go. There is a table. Do you remember when we thought we were dead cool because we were showing off our iPad?
Yeah, and it's old hat now. Just get on with it.
Yeah. So I'm going to tap in any cell in this table. So this is my raw data here that my pivot table is going to be based on. Just tap in any cell, and down the bottom right I get a little cell button. So I will tap on that, and a little panel pops up. And on that panel we've got Create Pivot Table. So I will tap on that. Then I get the pivot table panel, which is familiar from everything we've done in the last few weeks. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to drag product to rows. So literally just drag it to rows. There we go. And I'm going to drag revenue to values. So just drag revenue to values. And voila, as they say, there is a pivot table. So, as we say in the UK, easy peasy lemon squeezy.
People will lock you up.
Yeah, it was a delegate that said that years and years ago. So no, there's a pivot table. Right, I'm going to create another pivot table. You'll notice that it has automatically put it onto a new sheet. I don't think in the iPad version you can choose whether to put it onto an existing sheet or a new sheet, so it's just putting it on a new sheet. But of course you can cut and paste it if you wanted it in a specific location. So I'll go back to my data, tap anywhere in that table and tap on cell down at the bottom and create a pivot table from the menu that pops up. This time I'm going to drag product to rows, which I think is what I did last time. So there we go, product to rows. And I'm going to drag country to columns. So country sold to, let's drag that to columns. And for the values, I'm going to drag in order ID. Now if I go back to my data, order ID is a text column. So I will just drag order ID into values, and there is my pivot table. Because it's text, it's doing a count. I then want to swap columns and rows over. I want to swap country and product over. So just like you do on the desktop version, just drag country into the rows box and product into the, where is it? There it is. Yeah, product into the columns box. and that swaps the options over. So you can also do it by tapping on the three dots over to the right and choosing swap column and row, but drag and drop is the alternative, and that's the way that I'm used to. Okay, if I go back to my data and I change a value, so let's just change that China to 10,000. Okay, then go back to my pivot table, go back to this pivot table, and what was that? Oh, it was for a suit. It was for a suit that I changed. So I would expect that row 7 does change, but it doesn't change automatically. I will need to refresh it, and the way that you refresh it is by tapping on the three dots at the top right just under the word filter and tap on the refresh icon, and that does a refresh. Let's go back to the data and change this China, change this Japan to China. So what I should find now is that the Japan total goes down 1 and the China total goes up 1. To do that, I need to refresh again. So just tap on the little three dots at the top right there, just underneath the word filter, and hit the refresh button. And there we go, the numbers have changed. The grand total is the same, but the numbers have changed. I want to hide the totals on this pivot table. So if I tap on the three dots next to rows in the lower half of the screen, I can hide the grand total row. And if I tap on the three dots next to, not next to values, next to columns, over on the right, I can hide the grand total column. So if you want to hide the total columns, that's the way to do it. If you want to bring them back, do the same thing. Tap the three dots and show the grand totals. Tap the three dots and show the grand totals. Okay, now one thing that I showed you on the desktop version was how you can select a cell and drill down and get a table generated for the source data. So in Excel, this is the equivalent of the Excel where you double tap or double click on a cell with a number in it. So let's say I just tap on shirts for Japan, that cell there, C7. You've actually got to tap twice. So if I tap twice, it should bring up a little menu. Not happening. Why isn't that happening? There we go. Yeah. Well, that worked. Oh, that's better. I think I've got some of your gremlins here.
Don't look at me.
Right, that's worked anyway. So I've tapped twice. It's not a double tap, it's two single taps. So I've tapped twice on a cell. It wasn't the cell I originally said. This one is now shoes in Germany. Tap on cell actions and choose create table for source data. And that has created a table that contains the source data. So because I double tapped on that cell there, which was number of orders for shoes to Germany, it's given me the 23 rows that make up shoes for Germany. Okay, if you want to sort a pivot table, let's go back to this pivot table. Tap in the pivot table, tap on the organize icon, which I've already done, which is the one just to the right of the paintbrush at the top. That's the organize icon, and then tap on the eye icon next to product. So that one, not that one there, that one there, right next to the product on the green button. I paused there when I said green button because I was having a discussion with my boss today about whether you should point out colours of buttons and things because of colour blindness.
For crying out loud.
What?
Well, you've got to say what colour it is, surely.
Well, we've both just done our inclusivity training.
Oh, Lord.
Yes. So
But aren't you doing a disservice to people who can see that it's green, but now you're not saying it's green, you're trying to describe it?
Yeah, it's the button in the rose section in the lower half of the right-hand panel that's got an eye icon on it. So if I tap that, I can choose to sort by revenue, and I can choose to sort in descending order. So just tap on that ascending, descending to change the order, and then tap away. What else? Filtering. Okay, so tap into a pivot table. No, I'll use the other pivot table. No, I can use this one. This one's fine. Okay, so I've tapped in the pivot table. Up at the top right, there is a filter button. So I'll tap on that and then add a filter. And I want to filter on country sold to. I'm only interested in looking at all of the products, but the revenues for EMEA. So tap on country sold to, deselect everything, and then just select UK, Germany and France. Those are the EMEA countries. And finally, let's look at how to do a chart. So tap anywhere in the pivot table that you want to base the chart on. Tap on cell down at the bottom. I'm not going to mention the colour of that button. And select create new chart. And then choose the type of chart that you want to create. You've got 2D charts, you've got 3D charts, you've got interactive charts. So pretty much the same as you got on the desktop app. And I'll just choose this column chart here, and there we go. There is our chart. You can resize it, you can move it around. It is pretty good, I must admit. That is from an Excel fanboy. Yeah, they've done a good job on this. So that is numbers with pivot tables on the iPad. Okay. Do we have any questions?
We've got lots going on here. They're now seeing do you remember the card that went into the freezer? Tracy wanted to see it, so we've seen that.
Oh, right. Okay.
Bad news about Ted and Ted's card getting hacked. We had that, didn't we?
We did.
Adobe. That was thanks to Adobe. And it was a nightmare, wasn't it? Because they cancel the card and then you've got to update it on all these services and hope that between you getting the card cancelled and getting the new card, you haven't got any payments going out because they're not going to go out and then it's going to fail. Oh, bad news. But yes, it's a snow leopard and it used to be a panda, didn't it?
It did.
And I insisted we have it because they supported the panda breeding programme. But then they took the panda away and they didn't warn us. They just sent a new card and it didn't have a panda on and there was tears before bedtime. Why doesn't Amazon in the UK like Visa? Well, that came out the other day, didn't it? They're just not supporting Visa anymore. They're not going to take Visa cards. It's to do with the amount of handling charge that Visa are demanding from Amazon, which Amazon have to soak up. So they've been dealing with them for a while over it, and they've not come to any conclusion. So they've decided they're just going to ban Visa. So the first thing I did, I opened my eyes and I looked at the news and I thought, OMG. I need to check whether I've got a card on there that is actually a Visa card. Anyway, panic over. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. So let me do that, and then you can sort your screen out.
Right. Okay, I've cleared numbers. Cleared my iPad.
We've got Black Friday deals starting today, actually, with Amazon.
Oh, somebody posted on Workplace at work and said, what's the AZ position on getting Adobe licenses, because I've just seen a great Black Friday deal.
No.
It's like, you've got to go through the approval purchase process.
Which I believe is 3 years long.
Yeah, never mind Black Friday deals. Right, where's my Windows gone? Right.
You get yourself sorted out.
I'm sorted out. Okay, yeah, back to...
They can't see you yet. So
back to
would you like to be seen?
back to a computer.
Oh, hang on. We've got icons on the desktop. Incoming warning. They're lined up. It's not as bad as I've seen it.
Yeah, but that one's going to be used. So
there you go.
So there we go.
Back with you, Mike.
Right, shall I start?
Why not?
Are you sitting comfortably? Then I'll begin. Okay, back after last week's fun, where we had fun with cartoon characters, which I enjoyed that. That was good fun. We're back to Power Query. Okay, so when you're working with list-based data in Excel, I think we've established, because I've said it a million times, that list-based data is best stored in the data model in your Excel spreadsheet or your Excel file rather than the actual spreadsheet cells itself. Now there's two ways that you can get the data into the data model. You can use Power Pivot or Power Query, and I'm going to just do an overview of both. But first of all, the data that we're working with is this data here. So it's a CSV file, it's HR data, it's been pulled out of our HR system because I don't have permission to connect Excel directly to the HR system, so I have to get a data dump into a CSV file and then pull that into Excel. So as I said, there's two ways to do it. So if I open up Excel, let's call up a blank workbook. Now, if I want to import this data from this CSV into the data model, I can do it via Power Pivot. And of course, what I'm showing you today only works on Windows, which is why I'm using the Windows version of Excel. So I'll go to Power Pivot and I go to Manage, which opens up the data model window. And then I click on From Other Sources, choose text file, click Next, then go and find the text file. Make sure that I tick the box that says use first row as column headers. If I don't, then the first row will be treated as a record and the column headers will be F1, F2, F3 and so on. It just names them F as in field. So make sure I tick that box and finish. And what it's done is it's imported, in this example, 30,000 rows from that CSV file, but it's not imported them into the spreadsheet part of Excel. So the spreadsheet part of Excel is totally blank. It's imported them into the data model, which is this other data storage area inside an Excel file. Why you'd store the data in there as opposed to storing the data in the spreadsheet, I've covered on numerous occasions. Okay, now I need to clean the data up, and that's what I wanted to focus on today, cleaning the data up. And so what I've got here in this leaving date column is if somebody has left the company, then there is a proper date. Somewhere there will be some leaving dates. It all looks to be the same, but I'm sure there's somewhere there is a leaving date. Yeah, there we go. We've got some people who've left the company, so we've got the date that they left the company. But if they haven't left the company, it's put in 01/01/1900 at midnight, and that's just because that's what's in the CSV file, because that's how the data got exported out of our HR system. So I need to replace all the 01/01/1900s with a blank. I could try find and replace. So I could go to find and I could try 01/01/1900. If I put a star after it, that should pick up anything with 01/01/1900 at the beginning. Replace with nothing and hit replace. And it says it can't find that item. So find and replace only works on certain things. So that's not going to work. I could use a formula, but it would end up being hideously complex. So I'm not going to do that in here. Another option would be to convert, or another option that's needed, another data cleaning up, is to convert the department to uppercase. So in the pivot tables and charts that would be created as a result of this data being imported and then tidied up, it's been decided that the department name needs to be in uppercase. Now, how can I do that? Because there's no option on here on the ribbon to do any data conversion. You could create a new column which converts that to uppercase, but then you'd end up with two columns for the department, one showing the text as it is and the other showing it as uppercase. So that would then increase the size of the file, because you're then adding another 30,000 items by creating this extra column. So again, not the best way to do it. So Power Pivot is great. Power Pivot should not, however, be used for importing the data into the data model. Power Pivot should be used primarily for creating measures, which is something I have covered before. So if I actually close this file down and don't save it, and then start another new file. If you shouldn't use, you can use Power Pivot to get the data into the data model, but it's not best practice. So if you shouldn't use Power Pivot to get the data into the data model, so if you don't go to Power Pivot Manage and then use Get Data from other sources, what should you use? What you should use is Power Query, or Get and Transform as it's called. So you go to Data, and on the Get Data menu you've got loads and loads of different sources that is supported, and that's one reason to use Power Query, because Power Query supports lots more data sources. But also, once the data's been loaded into the data model, if you do it via Power Query, you can then use Power Query to do the cleaning, and that's what I'm going to show you now. So if I go to Data, Get Data from File from CSV, then go and find this CSV file and import it. And because I want to load the data into the data model, I don't click the load button. That would just load the data into the spreadsheet, and I want to avoid that. Click the arrow next to load and select load to. Tick the box that says add the data to the data model, but also choose only create a connection. Because if you leave it set to table, it's going to load the data into the data model, but it's also going to take a copy of the data and load it into the spreadsheet. So only create a connection, add to the data model, click OK. So the data now has been loaded into the data model. We can check that by going to Power Pivot Manage. And there's the data. It's still exactly the same data, so it's still got the 0101-1900, although it hasn't got the time with it. That's obviously something, because the time, the midnight, isn't stored in the CSV file. That's obviously something that's just been added when the data was imported into the data model directly using Power Pivot. But if I want to clean that data up, I can use the Power Query. So first of all, I need to go to Data, Queries and Connections. Then, with that panel displayed, right-click on Employees and select Edit, and that opens up the query. And this is where you perform your data cleaning operations, amongst other things. There's lots and lots and lots of things you can do in the query editor, which is what we're looking at now. But we're just looking at the basics today of cleaning up data. So for example, I want to remove the 01011900, which means that this person hasn't left the company, and replace it with a blank. So I can select the leave date column, right click on the heading, and from the menu select replace values and replace 01011900 with nothing. And what it's done is it has done exactly what I asked it to do. So we're left with only the people who've got a leaving date. Then I want to convert the department names to uppercase. So I click on the department heading, right click, transform uppercase. And then I want to remove the TET dash from the employee number column. So I can select the employee number column, right click, and the option I want to use isn't here, so it's not on the right click. So not everything is available on the right click. If the option you want isn't on the right click, you need to use the menu. So in this case, transform, extract, text after delimiter. And the delimiter is the dash. So I'm saying keep everything after the dash. And there we go. And then, no, not finally, there's two more things I want to do. I want to create a pivot table that shows the number of people who were hired each year. So I want to convert the hire date into a just a year. So first of all, I need to change this so that it actually recognizes them as dates, because at the moment it's treating it as text. So I need to change this, tell it that it's dates, and it's dates in UK format. Although it displays them in US format, the original data was in UK format. And then now they're dates, with them selected, go to date, year, year. And that just gives me the year out of each date. And then finally, I'm only interested in the people who are still employed. So anybody who's got a leaving date, I don't want to be included in the pivot table. So all I do is say keep anything that is blank. Okay, so if I then come out of the query editor by going to File, Close and Load, it will now update the query, and it's actually now got rid of 2,500 rows. And if I go to the data model, Power Pivot, Manage, you can now see the changes are there. So the leaving dates are blank, the hire date is there, and the department is in uppercase. So what you do is you bring the data in via Power Query. You do the data cleaning via Power Query, but the data itself is stored in the data model, and that is managed by Power Pivot. As it happens for this example, we don't need to do any management of the data model, so it just sits there in the background. But I do want to create a pivot table, so insert a pivot table, but the data is in the data model. And what I need to do here is drag in date of birth. No, hire date, it was not date of birth. Drag in hire date into rows, and that's giving me just the date, just the years, because that's what I tidied up. And drag in department into columns, and that's giving me the department names in uppercase. And drag in, let's say, employee number into values. And that is giving me a count of how many people started with the company per year, per department. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. That is the basics of data cleaning, to get your data into Excel, tidy it up, ready to build a pivot table. Okay, Pete says, when would you manage the data model and what sort of thing does that involve? Okay, managing the data model is if you wanted to create additional columns. So, for example, if I went into Power Pivot Manage, let's say I wanted to create a column that was the monthly salary, because I wanted to do a pivot table to calculate monthly salaries per department or monthly salaries per country. Then you can create an extra column here, and then just up here put a formula that will be annual salary divided by 12. But you can also do that using Power Query in the query editor, and most people, actually including myself, recommend that you do any calculations like that in the query editor. So that then brings us to, why would you ever need to manage the data model? Well, there's two things that you would do with Power Pivot. One of them is manage relationships. So this particular table, Pete, this particular file, Pete, has just got one table in it, employees, but you can have multiple tables. And if those tables can be related in some way, like a relational database, then you manage the relationships inside Power Pivot. But the other use of Power Pivot is for creating what are called measures, which is something I will come on to in the future. And yes, I think we all wish that this was in the Mac version, Kim. It would, it would make the Mac version so much more marketable, but that's down to Microsoft. Okay, so any other questions? I don't see any other questions. I will pass back to you.
Okay, we're heading into Scrivener, and this time it's a custom compile. Right, fingers crossed that this is going to work. I've got real problems with PowerPoint right now. It's opening up on the wrong screen. It's got a mind of its own. Right, we are doing Patricia's compile requirements. So what we've looked at with compile is just how different the output can look. But we've used the manuscript compile that was built in, we've used the paperback one that was built in, and we've even edited them. But what we've not done is start with a specific range of requirements and then created a compile that ticks all the boxes. Literally, what you are looking at there is a copy and paste from an email from Patricia with what was needed. And I've added at the bottom page numbers. Now, I don't know if page numbers are needed or not, but it's probably a good idea to include them. So we need a particular font. We need a particular margin all the way around it. Then all of the text needs to be double spaced. And each paragraph needs to have an indent on the first line, apart from the first line, which is odd, isn't it, for a first line indent, but not on the first line. So not on the first paragraph. Every start of a chapter needs double space lines from the top, and they need to be centered in the page. And then the chapter name, but not the word chapter. So when we did it in the book and the manuscript, we got the word chapter, and that's not needed. But the chapter name itself is needed, and it needs to be centered. And then there's going to be a place and time designation that needs to be in italics, and that needs to be one double space below the title that is again centered. And then an extra double space after the chapter and time to start the first text. And then I put in the page numbers. Now, the first thing to think about with that, is it doable? So I went through this step by step. I could have just gone through and, yes, make it Times New Roman, do this, do that. But I did it step by step to make sure that I wasn't making one change and it automatically making another. So each one of those elements can be done. So there was a tick in every box. That's actually copy and pasted from drafts, which was where I was tracking it. So that is completely genuine. Now, we're going to take a step right back to the beginning. And we won't go through the whole thing, but I'm just going to point out some things that you need to be aware of at the beginning. Because if you look at that list of requirements, isn't it tempting to think, well, I'll make it Times New Roman in Scrivener? But if you want this as a manuscript, then you want it in one format. If you want it in this format for competition, then you need it in this format. So actually, the very best thing you can do in Scrivener is make it as plain as possible in terms of no styles, just type. Make it look like you want it to look while you're creating it. Now, there's one exception to that, and that's why I'm going to take a step back and show you that. Right, I'm going to have to come out of that completely because it's playing with my mind. Okay, right. What we've got here is this Christmas Carol that we've been working with. So this was not written or put in Scrivener with this particular output in mind. It was just put in here with the font that I prefer, in the style that I prefer, and left in there. But ultimately, what you're looking at is just plain text. There's nothing to stop me turning that to purple text and bold with yellow highlights, and it would still compile correctly. So when you're thinking about what to do at the Scrivener end, at the very beginning, make Scrivener look the way that you can write with it. Don't worry about the output at all, because the plainer you have the input, the easier it will be to compile it to anything you want it to look like. So all of this text here, all of it in the book, if we look at it, any text at all, there's no style. Now, we do have styles. Those are the default styles, but we're not using any of them at all. It's just plain text. Now, how does it know to look like that then? Well, if we go into the preferences and we go to editing and go to format, this is what it's using. So you define the default that you want Scrivener to look like. And for me, that's a sans serif font at a certain size, which is, I think it's 12. Is it 12? Are you 12? I think it's 12. Maybe it's a bit more. I want it to look like that. I do not want any indents or anything like that, but a lot of people do. And so they go into here and they move that and it indents it, or they move that and that gives them a hanging indent, you know, an indent with an indented first line rather. So you could do that in here. It would only impact new documents, but it's one way to do it if you want to see the content with those indents. Okay. But again, it's better just to have it plain, because in some circumstances you might want that indent, in others you might not. So while you can do it that way, that's not the way I'm doing it, because you can see in here there are no indents. Other way, you could of course manually indent it. Don't do that. Don't be tempted to try and make what's in Scrivener look like what you think you're going to want out of Scrivener. Don't do that. Just ignore it. All of the things, the plainer it is, the easier it is to work on compile. Now, there is an exception to that, and it's probably the only exception to that, and I don't think it will apply in Patricia's case at all. But I have stuff that we output. So we've got MacBites stuff, nothing in there, but there is in Pearls Before Swine with all our content. And what we have in here, we don't, when we produce it out, it doesn't really need, well, we have our own compile and it's pretty much going to look like it does in here. The email, on the other hand, yes, we have the title at the top, and yes, we have the name. Let's make that a bit easier like that. And we do have the graphic, but these are codes that we have that make it look that way. Our reminder for tonight, one looks like that. So this comes out looking like code, and this comes out looking like a button. So we have it looking one way in here, and you can see there is a style on it, because when we come to output it, we want to pass the fact that that is a button and it's green over to compile to work with. But if you think about a novel or a story, you're not going to need that. The other one that is a total exception to it is this one. Don't do this. Don't do this. I'm not saying, you know, I'm doing this and you not to do this, but seriously, don't do this unless You want the output to look exactly like that, because I do. I need to know that that's a slide and I'm saying that. And then there's another slide and I'm saying that. So every bit of this is styled. We have a slide at the top. We then have intro, outro. Then we have another slide and then we have commentary. And if it's bullets, we have commentary tight. And every single word is styled. But that's because if I were to compile this, I would want it to look like that. But the fact is, I don't want to compile it. I want to have that on the screen and I want to record it. So I don't want to compile it at all. It saves me time not to. But that's the only reason to style the life out of it. Now, the problem I see is that people do that with a book. They indent the first line and they make it Times New Roman 12 and then they get a pair of binoculars so they can read it. Because they're trying to aim for the final output, because they're trained on Word. You know, that's what you do in Word. If you want it Times New Roman 12 with the first line indent, you've got to put that in. Forget that in Scrivener. It is a totally different ballgame. So aim for what you want it to look like while you're editing it. And pretty much make that the default so there is no style whatsoever. And then everything can be handled during the compile. All of it. All of those options that Patricia wanted, we can deal with during compile. Right, got a question here. How do you access preferences in editing the style? Not quite sure what you mean there. You access the preferences in editing the style. Your preferences are in Scrivener preferences, and the formatting that you have available in there is the default from this point forward for files. So new files and new documents within this file. So that's what you get in there. If you're talking about editing the actual styles, so if like in here, you've got this slide style, at the bottom of your styles, you have the Show Styles panel, which is opened unhelpfully on the wrong window, but I will bring it on. There it is. And in here, you can change it. So in here, if I wanted to change that option there, I could, what should we do with it? Let's make it italic. If I make that heavy italic, and I go into here, I can redefine a paragraph style from the selection and just say OK. And it will update everything. So now every instance of that style is italic. So if that is the question, then that's the answer to it. So what I would do in there is, again, take that away. I had it bold, but not italic. And all I need to do is just keep redefining it. And it updates across the file, all of them. But it's still not a grand idea to do that unless you absolutely need to. So back in here, what would happen if we came to compile this? So we'll look at what we've got. Everything is under manuscript. We do have characters, we do have places, and we've got front matter, and we've got images and all kinds of stuff. We even had a cover in there, didn't we? So I do have all of that, but this manuscript folder is the special folder that contains the output that we want. So we have a preface, and we have some content, and then we have the individual, and in here they're called staves, but ultimately they're chapters. And then we have scenes within the chapters. Okay, so that's what we've got. That's what we want to compile. So running the compile option, I'm just going to choose PDF for the output so you can actually see it. And I'm going to choose default for the format. So this is what you would get if you did nothing. If you just thought, well, you know, I want to get it out of Scrivener to make a PDF of it to take with me on my phone. But I just want that as a PDF. That's it. As plain as it comes. Don't want to make any changes. Just want to do that with it. So Pete says, if you were writing in Scrivener but exporting to Affinity Publisher, would you use styles or do it all in the compile? Just thinking of identifying headings, etc. You've got a couple of options when it comes to identifying the headings. The headings could be within the text, but they don't have to be. They could actually come from the scrivening title itself. So it depends which way you try and work. Follow along with this, Pete, and then see which way you would work. Would you want the content to be inside the document with the headings, or do you want to get the headings from somewhere else? And in terms of getting it into Affinity Publisher, you have to go via DocX or RTF. So if you have styles in there, you can map those styles and they will translate. So it depends which way you want to work with that. But if it's in this case, it's a story or a novel, then I would say keep it as plain as possible for as long as possible. Because if I decided that I wanted to change all the styles in that Udemy Blue Yeti thing, it would take me an age. I'd have to update the whole lot, which for me, for what I want to do, is what I would be prepared to do. But if it was an entire book, I would just leave it as plain as possible for as long as possible. So that's the way I would move. We have in the preferences, you access to change the indents. You showed how after you showed the style drop down. Great video. Well, I'm glad that's useful. So we are going to now compile this, and Patricia's going to be horrified. It's going to look nothing like she wants. But this is what happens when people compile. It doesn't look anything like it. Right, so I'm going to put this in here. We've got all kinds of stuff in here, but this is going to be the default, and this is going to be in the demo. In fact, I'll put demo at the beginning, and that way they'll all be in the right place. So it's going to export the entire thing, open it up in PDF Expert, and Patricia's horrified. It looks nothing like that. So we have the wrong font. We have the word preface and the word contents, but we have contents twice. Why are we doing that? Where's that coming from? Well, the first instance of the word contents is coming from the fact in here that we actually have the scrivening called contents. So that text there is the first one, and this one is the second one. So in relation to Pete's question about how do I identify the headings, we don't actually need that heading in there. We could use this one. It depends whether you want the headings inside the document or whether you're going to use the headings from over here. Some headings we might want, some we might not. So we would want that heading, because that heading of Stave 1 Marley's Ghost, not in the text. Not in the text at all. But we can use it from the fact that it's in the binder. This one we've got twice. So that's why we're seeing it twice. And the same with the preface. We have the word preface in there, which is included, and we're getting the preface from over there as well. So what we can say is this compile setting, not the best, not for this. Then we've got the first chapter. And while we don't have Stave 1 twice, that's because it's not in the text at all. It's coming from the heading. We wouldn't want chapter 1 to start on page 1 underneath the contents, would we? So not the best. Right, I'm going to flick views so we can see the whole thing. You can see here that that's also page 1, which it shouldn't be. Basically, Marley's Ghost should start on a recto page, the right-hand side, and be page 1. But at this point, people who've tried compile just throw their hands in the air and like, that's it. Let's leave it, because it's too complicated. There's so many changes that you would want to make. Think back to Patricia's list. There were 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10 changes need to be made, and they're pretty substantial changes. Right, other thing to think about. So we're looking at all that it's doing wrong. As we move down, we will have chapter 2. And that just follows on from chapter 1. Again, it should be on a recto page with some gap at the top of it. And in Patricia's case, it's going to have a place time designation in italics underneath. So while this would be good enough for a proofread for yourself, it probably isn't the type of output that any editor or anywhere that you're submitting it to would want. It's not in the right format at all. So that's the problem. That's what we've got when we compile it. That's the problem. So let's try and fix it. So this is how you do it. You go into the compile, and you could pick one of the Scrivener formats and think, well, that one's the nearest to what I want. But I don't suggest you do that, because creating a compile setting from scratch will serve you well. So down here, just make a completely new format. So at the top, it says new format. Right, this one's going to be done in the demo. And again, it's Patricia. So we'll just leave it called Patricia. Right. Before we go any further, the first thing you're faced with is section layouts, and you've got all of this stuff here. And as you go through them, they all say unused. Oh no. So nothing is wired up at this point. Nothing at all. So what do we do about that? Well, we've created this thing called Patricia. We can save that, although we've not made any changes yet. And this big yellow box here is saying, whoa, there's no layouts from this format assigned to anything. And what it means is, and I'm just going to hold the Option key down. If you've gone in here and done what I've done, which is create this demo format, it's saved, but I don't want to compile it yet. I want to go back to Scrivener. If you hold the Option key down, buttons change. You can reset or you can save without compiling. So Option key and save. Right, so what's it talking about? What's it talking about, these sections of which it speaks? So I'm going to click on Manuscript. I'm going to change the view into the outline view. What it's referring to is this, the section type. So I have already gone through this document and I have said, okay, you're a preface, so you're a section of my work. You're the contents, you are also a section. But you're a chapter heading. And these scenes are scenes. And then we have another chapter heading, and then we have some scenes, and then another chapter heading, and more scenes. Okay. So, in here, we need to tell it. We know we've got 3 now. So what I would tend to do is write those down on a Post-it note so I can see the names of them. And I would create from scratch a compile setting for each type of document. Now, Tracy's saying, I'd have thought the internal thoughts formatting would have been in the document, not the compile. It depends what exactly you mean by that. If there's a word and you want it italic, fine. But don't forget, you can still do that in the compile as well. So you might want one word in one compile highlighted and something else in something else. You're going to need something at the formatting stage to let it know. But if it was like every time somebody's name is mentioned, you want that in italics. So if we want Ebenezer and Scrooge in italics, we can do that in the compile. So it's unusual if you are manually formatting anything in this kind of document. You've seen mine's totally manually formatted, but that's because I want it to look a certain way and I'm not interested in compiling it, to be honest. I will use that at the point that I do something, but I won't be compiling it. But in here, everything can go via the compile. So we've got a Post-it note. In fact, let's get a Post-it note. There's a Post-it note. Right, and I will make a note of the 3 sections that we've got. So we're talking section types. We have section, we have a chapter heading, and we have, in this case, we've got scene. You may not have scene if you don't split it up into scenes, but that's what we've got. Right, so those are the 3 that we're working with. So back to our compile. At the moment, nothing is married up to anything. So let's go back into the edit format. So all of these are predefined ways to format a document. So with a new heading, with heading and text, yeah, all sorts of stuff. And guess what? We're not going to use any of them. So I'm just going to delete the lot. Now we've got no layouts at all. Believe me, this is the best way to do it, because otherwise you're going to end up with 8 to 10 layouts in there that you're not using. You'll be able to tell whether you're using them or not, because they'll be bold if you've assigned them and not bold if you've not. But why have stuff in there you don't need? Because you're actually going to be one of the few people that totally understands compile. So you can start from nothing. So we need to create one layout to get us going. And the first one is section. Right, that will do absolutely nothing yet. There's 2 reasons for that. One, if we look down at this part here, we will see it says it's unused. So it's not allocated to anything. But the second reason that it won't do anything is that we haven't put a tick in one of these boxes. We put a tick in one of these boxes depending on what content from this we want included. And that's what we're seeing down here. This is the preview. The bit at the bottom is the preview. And right now, there's nothing there because we haven't got a tick in any of the boxes. Now, the section, if you remember, was the preface and the contents. So, in the default, when we went in here and we looked at that, we had the word preface twice. And we had the contents twice. And that will happen if we do this. If we say, we want to see the title, and up it comes. And that will convert to the actual title of the scrivening during the compile. But we don't want that at all. So just take the tick out of the box. What do we want? And if we look back at this, we would like the content of the scrivening, which is all of that for the first bit and all of that for the second bit. But we don't want that and we don't want that. So we put a tick in text. We want to include the text. And that's it. That's all we need to do. But at this stage, we're just defining the layouts, the section layouts. We're not saying, and by the way, we want it Times New Roman. We're coming to that. But at the moment, that's what we want for a section. We know we need 3 of these, though. The second one was called chapter heading. Right, what do we want from the chapter heading? Well, we don't want the text, and the text has come in automatically, but we don't want the text at this stage. Now, actually, down the line we will, but we're doing this one bit at a time. We want the headings from the folders. So just behind here, you can see stave 1, stave 2, and they were folders. They were formatted as chapter headings. So we just want the title. So for Pete, who is, where do I put these titles? Well, the headings are either in the body of the document, but you can also extract them at the point of compile from the headings in the binder. And that's how we're doing it. We're putting a tick in there. We only want the title. So if we look at the section, we've got text down here. And if we look at the chapter heading, we've just got section title. And we need one more. And the last one we needed was the scene. Now, what do we want from the scene? Well, the scenes all have a title. Some say scene colon and then a description. Some just give a description. We definitely don't want the title including, or we'd have a title like every paragraph. So we don't want that. But we do want the text. So put a tick in there. At that point, you have defined the section layouts. You've not given a second thought to what they look like, but you've defined the section layouts. So at that stage, we can save that because we need to do one more thing for it to work. It's still saying no layouts have been assigned. Right, but we have a button down here to assign those layouts. And if we look at what we've actually got, it says available layouts unassigned. If we look at them, we've got in there, these look remarkably like the ones that we have just defined. So we've got that had text in it, that had text in it, and this one only had the heading in it. But this button will allow us to assign them. So in here, we have our section 1. We have our chapter heading, we have our scene, and this one will compile it and it will look like it does in the binder. So if I did choose to compile my script, then I would choose that because I don't want it to look any different than it looks in the binder. So we can pretty much ignore that one. We have our section types over here that we've just created. We created section first, then we did scene, chapter heading, and then we did scene. So there they are, but they're alphabetical down here. So the chapter heading, well, it's really simple. We want that to look like a chapter heading. What do we want the scene to look like? Guess what? A scene. And what do we want the section to look like? A section. So I keep the section types exactly the same names, so I know that my layouts will work. My layouts are called exactly the same as the section types. They don't have to be. We could have a chapter heading and it could be mapped to something totally different. But at this stage, keep it simple and make sure that the sections are called the same as the section types and life will be easier. You can get clever later.
It's a question from Pete.
Pete says, if I nested folders within folders, sections within a chapter or chapters within a volume, as long as I assign them different names and roles, I can format them differently. Yes, you can. Now, that was added in version 3. Version 2 of Scrivener, you had to have it. It was based on the structure of the document. But that was the huge change in version 3, which is why the compile in version 3 is so different. Everything that we're looking at in that window that you're looking at now didn't exist in version 2. It gives you much more flexibility. So I'm going to save that, and now our little yellow thing has disappeared, and we can see that the scene is mapped to the scene and the chapter to the chapter and the section to the section. I'm going to save that just to show you in terms of, is it in here? No, it's the old one. Okay, this is an old one, right? In here, all of these are at the same level. And they had to be at the same level to turn out looking the same. But if one of them was a quiz and I wanted it to look different, then I've got a problem. I have in version 2, which is where this came from. So in here, if I wanted something to look different, all I need to do in the outline is change it. So you see it says lesson. It could also say quiz. It could be lesson content, could be a heading, could be a sort of heading, so it could be a section, could be a module, could be anything. And you define what it actually is by choosing its section type and then telling it what that section type should look like. Pete might be like learning to love compile. It is incredibly powerful, but I would say it takes quite a while to get to the point that it's second nature. Right, Patricia's got a question. You're following in Scrivener, but your scene choice is not showing. Where is your scene choice not showing? Ted says there are quizzes. Nobody told me that. Well, no, a quiz is just another data type. It's just another type of document. So let's say when this is compiled, I would like the quiz things to look at. Let's get back into here. That I would like a quiz to have a different font type. So maybe the quiz is in italic. That's how I would do it. I would create a different section type called quiz, and I would set the compile options to be different. So scene choice. Where are you looking for your scene choice? It could be you've not created those yet. I've created these in here. So if you're not seeing what I'm seeing, it's probably because you haven't created these. If you're wondering where to create these, we did look at this a good few weeks back. In the project itself, in the project settings, you have section types. And these are the section types that are available in here. So I have my chapter heading, and I have my section, and I have my scene. I've also got chapter and heading and table of contents and NA. But I'm not using those anyway. So to be honest, I could just get rid of these because I'm not using them. All I'm interested in is the section, the scene, and the chapter heading. So make sure you've got those. Make sure these are created inside here in section types, and then apply them in the outline view to the relevant documents. Right, once you've got that, then we're good to go back into compile. Right. So we're still in demo Patricia at this stage, and we've not done anything in terms of we've mapped these together and we've told it what content we want. So we don't want the title on 2 of them, and we don't want the content on the 3rd. This is what I then do. So I do this incrementally. I don't want to try and fix. I don't want to make changes, multiple changes, and then try and work out which bit I need to fix. I check everything one at a time. So I'm going to compile it. And what I'm going to do is at the point it compiles, I'm going to demo, and I then call it the name of the compile, and I put a number after it. And you'll see here, when I did it for real, when I was prepping, it took 12 goes. So I've got demo Patricia and 001 there, and I'm going to export it. And it will open it in PDF Expert. What am I checking for at this point? Well, the preface has gone, the title. The title for the contents has gone. Awesome. And as I move through here, I have the title for the chapter, but I don't have the title for all of the scenes. Other than that, made no changes. But what that proves to me is that I've done my mapping correctly. So let's get rid of that. And what I mean by doing my mapping correctly is in the compile, when I go into the assign layouts here, not the assign layouts, no, into there on the edit, these in here, I've put the ticks in the right boxes. Now I can get down to the business of it. So in the section, what do I want it to look like? And if I come into here, I can select this, but I can't do anything with it. All right, all of this is dimmed out at the top. But I can override it, and that's what I want to do. I want to override this manually. Now, the right way to do this would be to create a style, because all three of these are going to use the same font. But I'm going to show you the manual way to do it. That way we'll get to do it 3 times. And the manual way to do it also gives you flexibility if you want them to look differently. So we don't want it to be Avenir. We want it to be Times New Roman. And that's it. Now it's Times New Roman. Simple as that. But we don't want it to be 16 points either. We want that to be 12, because that's the first of Patricia's requirements, that it's 12 points and it's Times New Roman. So I've done that in there. That is it. That's going to do it. The next one is the chapter heading. I'm not sure if we actually had that, if we had a font size for the chapter heading, but we'll make it a smidgen bigger. But again, we need to override it. We need to grab this. This is going to be the chapter heading. So let's go back to our requirements. Our requirements were that the chapter name was centered. And I'm presuming we don't want it Avenir. So we'll make it Times New Roman and we'll make it 16, but we will center it on the page. That's it, you're done. Then the scene, this one's a bit trickier. This is going to be the body of the work. So I do need to override it, and I do need to go in and say Times New Roman, and I do need to make it 12. But there's something else we need to do. But I don't want to do all of this at once, because then, again, when I come to troubleshoot, like, why is that not looking right? It could be the result of something else. So let's concentrate on getting the fonts right. So we've told it that we want it Times New Roman, we've created a chapter heading, and we've centered it. Right, let's just save it. And at that point, we'll compile it. And this is why, when you see me testing the compile, I've got 12 of them. And trust me, 12's not that many. I think I've got up to about 40 on some things, because they're complicated, really complicated. Right, halfway there. Right, we've got the right font. We have the chapter title there in the middle, but it's a bit tight, isn't it? One of the requirements further down was that they were double spaced. But we've got to the point that we know everything we've done so far is correct. And you just keep iterating. So back in here, I go back into my compile. And I know it seems long-winded that you're going in and out, but until you are proficient, it's the easiest way. So in our section, we've got the right text in here. And you might look at that and think, I don't have an option for some of this. But in there, you can double space it. So we don't need to double space the heading, but the scene, we need to double space it. So let's just double space it. Sorted. Right. At that point, if we compile it, we should have the double spacing on everything. So this is our third iteration of it. And once you've set up this compile, you never need to see it again, for which you'll be very grateful. But now we see that we've got this double spacing on it. It's looking awesome. Right, getting there. Now, I would probably do all the formatting of the text at the same time, but Patricia's put in 1-inch margins all round. So let's take a detour, because we've still got things to do with the text. But let's take a detour with this. And in here, let's think about, okay, 1-inch margins all the way around. Well, that's not going to be involving the section layouts. We look down here, we've got a whole other group. Oh, Patricia says they need double spacing on the heading. Right, well, let's grab that then, and let's just do that. Right, so now there's double spacing on the heading as well. But the next thing we want to look at is try and get an inch margin all the way around. And it's not going to be separators or styles or text layouts. These are all groupings, but page settings looks good. Now at the moment that's set to use the project page setting. We can override that at this point. We can go into the page setup and it's picked up A4 from there. So use the default size of A4. And the margins by default are 1 inch. So that was handy. But if you wanted to change them, this is where you would change them. So 1 inch margins. I think that would look pretty much the same if we come out of that and do it now. But while we're in here, this is where we're going to come back to, because in the options in here, we're going to come back into the options because we're going to need to think about where we want the page numbers. And we need to go, are we having the page numbers at the bottom or do we want them on the right, the left? Do we want page X of Y? What do we want? And what they look like. So we will be back in here, but at the moment, we're putting a tick in 1 inch margins all the way around. So if we have a look at where we're at with this, and I don't think I can actually put these in, that's unfortunate. But what we've got in here is we've got the 12 point Times New Roman, tick. We've got 1 inch margins, tick. We've got it double spaced, tick. We need to indent the first line by 1/2 inch. Okay, let's come out and have a look at that then. In fact, I need to see that, don't I? So let's come out of that. Right. So we need to think about the fact that we want the first paragraph. Well, no, we want the first line of every paragraph to be indented by 1/2 inch. Tricky, because we didn't do that, did we? But it will work. Oh, Patricia's saying page X of total at the top right margin in header. Right, that's where I'll put it. But at the moment, we need to think about the content of our novel is here. And we need to indent that. So if we grab that and pull that triangle over, that's not working, is it? Hang on, let's grab this. Let's grab that and move that in. And you're still not moving. Why are you being awkward? Are we in the right place? We are. And I didn't think it was the bar. The bar? Oh, it could have been the bar. Let me check. I'll save that because here's one that I did earlier and we know that works. I didn't think it was the bar, but we'll find out. Okay, it was the bar. I stand corrected. So what I've just done in there is I've gone in and grabbed the actual text, and by moving the bar from over there, that will indent it. Now you can see that in here it's in centimetres, but one centimetre is about 1/2 inch. So that has done the indenting. Okay. Now, we're going to have a problem with that, though, if we come to compile it. So let's do another compile. And this is how come you get up to 47 of the things. Right? How's that looking? Is it right? Has it indented something I don't want indented, for example? Right, let's get into the contents. Oh, it has. That's not good news. So we've got the indent, which we do want on all of these, but not that one. Do we have a way of distinguishing that paragraph from all the other paragraphs? And one way would be with a style, but we don't really want to do that because that makes our own life difficult. So how do we distinguish that without a style? So we go back into our compile and we go and we edit it again. Right, in the scenes we want that indented, but then we need to go in and look at our settings here. So in here, I think it's one of these. Paragraph first line indents, don't change them. Or remove from the first paragraph. So internally, Scrivener knows that first paragraph, there's a good chance you don't want a first line indent on it. And if you put, you make that, you select that option and compile it. So do a save up to number 5, but we're getting there. Right, and have a look at that. So choose a page further in. Let's go down to there. We now have that one not indented and all of the others indented. Right. Pete says, why has the bar only indented the first line? It looked like the whole paragraph. No, because what we've got in there, Pete, let's come out of that one and hide that. What we've got in there are 3 lines of text. So go back in there And look at that. These are 3 independent lines of text. If the text, I don't know if that will wrap. There you go. It's just the width that I've got the text. They are 3 independent lines of text. But I've got this wide so we can see it. Right, okay, so what was the next bit? So we've done our double spacing, we've got the indent on the first line, except the first line. We want to start the chapters double spaced from the top and centred in the page. Cool. Right, well, where are the chapter headings? And the chapter headings are there. Right, we have a couple of options in here. So this is what it looks like. We've then got that you can put the word chapter in if you want it, but we don't in this circumstance. You've got new page options. So when this appears on at the top of a new page, pad the top of the page with how many blank lines. Now, bearing in mind, these should be double spaced. So we're saying 4 blank lines as long as they're double spaced. So 4 double spaced lines from the top. And the other instruction was centred in the page, which it is. Okay. Would that be enough to do it or not? And that's going to depend. So let's head off and have a look at it. We might beat 12 at this rate. Right. Let's have a look. It's moved it down. So if that's about right, hopefully that's okay. Right. That has put in 4 double space lines. Do we have a problem with that? That one's not too bad. Let's have a look and make sure, like that one, it's happened to all of them. So far so good on that one. There. But what we would need to know or check, and I don't know if we can do that from here. There's 23. Where's the other one? This one is page 68. Is page 68 right-handed or left-handed? And if you think a book always starts on the right-hand side on page 1, oh dear. And this one is not starting on the right page, on the right side. So we will need to come out of there and go back and have another look at what we can do about that. So back into edit the format. And we were working on the chapter headings here, and we were looking at new pages. Right. Every time it comes across a chapter heading, it's going to put in 4 lines from the top of a page. Awesome. But how about it always started the section on a recto page? So you have a verso, which is the left, and a recto, which is the right. And we always want it to start on the right-hand side. So we've sorted that problem as well. Right, what else do we need? Chapter name, centred, done that. Place and time designation in italics. All right, let's try that. Well, the place and time designation in italics, we haven't actually got that anywhere in here, have we? Where is it? Where's it coming from? It doesn't exist at the moment. Now, could we put that in at the point of compile? Well, it's actually book content. So no, that should not be done at this point. So I'm going to save it and let's go into here. Right, so in here, this is the chapter. In fact, if we choose that and actually look at the content, the opening scene is Marley was dead to begin with. The actual title of the chapter is there and there's nothing in it. Now, what Patricia's saying is there'll be a place-time designation in italics. Right. So we have to decide where we're putting that. You have 2 options. You could actually put it in the text, and then you'd need a way to tell Scrivener in the compile that it's different to the other text, and that's where styles come in. But if there's a way round it, let's do that. And there is a way around it, where you can have it in the text, but you don't need to use a style to make it look any different. So this is Scrooge's house. So Scrooge's house, Christmas Eve. Right, and that needs to be italic and Times New Roman, but leave it alone. Right, where is this? Well, where it is inside that chapter there. It's the only content inside the chapter heading. if we want down here, I think this is probably Scrooge's bedroom. Scrooge's bedroom. And this would be, let's say, midnight. Right. So we've got that information in here. You would add it to each of the chapters. Right, how does it know how to format that then? Because the instructions I've got, italics, 1 double space below the title centred. Right, well, let's get back into the compile. And let's edit that. Right, it's going to be in the chapter heading. At the moment, if we compiled it, we're not going to get that text because we don't have a tick in the text box. Now we need a tick in the text box. And that means the text appears here. But the only text that's ever going to be in something that's marked as a chapter heading is going to be the time and place. So I'm assuming with this we want it exactly the same, do we? We want it Times New Roman and 12, but we want it italic. So Times New Roman, 12 and italic. Right, what was the spacing requirements? 1 double space below with it centred. Right, 1 double space below. It's the best way to do that. Oh, hang on. That should do it. Double spaced like that. Right, that should do it. So we've got the 4 from the top, we've got the chapter name, we've got the time and place. I think we're good apart from the page numbers. So we'll test it. Right. We will compile this and test it. Oh, Patricia has made a style of time and place and applied it right on each separate page. Well, not really needed. Not really needed. Let's have a look at this one when we do 7. And away it goes. Right. Oh, I didn't centre it, did I? Silly me. I did not centre it. And not one of you pointed that out. Oh, let's go and do it. Let's go and do it. So we are chapter heading, get that and centre it. But you can see why I do this iteratively. I don't want to find out that I've made 3 changes and something's gone wrong and I've no idea what's gone wrong now. So check every single time. Oh yes, this is why it took me 3 days with one of mine. Right, now we've got a double space under it. And there we go. Awesome. Now, page numbers, different business. Different business. These don't look good at all. Font's all wrong. But also, you said you wanted it in, I think it was the top right-hand corner, top right margin. I think so. Right. Let's come out of there and add the page number. So, back into our compile. And another edit. And this time, we need to think about the page numbers. So, where were the page numbers? And they were on the page settings. So first off, we need this in some kind of whatever it needs to be. So it's definitely not Helvetica, that's for sure. So let's get Times New Roman, which is somewhere in here. Times New Roman. I'm probably quite small, but maybe it's 12, I'm not sure. Right. Let's do that one. Let's do the footer one. So back to Times New Roman. Once you've got it set up, you can come in and make tiny changes if need be. So come on, where's Times New Roman? Times New Roman and 12. Okay. Right. That's sorted out what it's going to look like, but not where it is. This is going to give us the number of pages. So if we cut that from there and we paste that in there, it's going to be in the top right-hand corner. But we wanted it to say page X of Y. Now, do we actually need the word page? If we do, then you actually type that in. Page, and then it will give you X, and then of Y. So that's what this is for here. Insert $P for the page number and $page count in angle brackets for the total pages, which is awesome. And a very good use, because I can't copy and paste it, for Text Sniper. To select it, and now that's on my clipboard, and it saves me typing it and making an arse of myself. Right, there we go. So I've put the spaces in, everything I've had to put in, the words, the page count, the space, the of, the space, and then the page count at the end. Okay. Right, let's have a look what that looks like. So again, save that, compile that, and I think we're almost there. Oh, excitement, and only 9. Right, let's have a look. And we need to check for multiple things at this point. Right, here's our page X of Y at the top. Good but no t-shirt, because that's page 1, isn't it? And this is page 1, not, hang on, that's page 1, only that says 3. So we need to sort that out. But everything else is looking tickety-boo, isn't it? Oh, yes. Everything that we need is working. If we look at the whole of this, we had a page and it was something like 63 or 4, something like that. Right, if we look at this one, although I'm seeing an error there, but this is the end of a chapter, and this chapter's not starting on page 70 anymore. It's on a recto page, so that's all right. Awesome. But there's still improvements that we can make, and this is the kind of thing that you might be unaware of, but when you see it, you'll want to fix it. So back into here, and what we're looking at here is the options for this. So this one is the header and footer text for the first pages. This is for the main body. But we also have options here. So do we want a different header and footer on first pages? We probably do. And do we want, let me have a look, page numbers count first pages. Right, this one, the main body and footer starts, is on page 2. So let's make that page 2. And do we want different header and footers on pages following page breaks? You might do if you want it aligned differently. Do you want, so no header or footer on blank pages, because we have got them on blank pages at the moment and that looks stupid. You can add dividers as well and make them vertical or whatever, but we want page 2 to be page 2, and we don't particularly want it on blank pages. So let's save that and compile that. Oh, you're going to have compile exhaustion by the end of this, aren't you? But it's good to keep the old ones to follow through in case something's gone wrong at some point. Right, so the blank page now has no page numbers on it. All of the chapters are starting on the right-hand side, and everything looks fabulous. Fabulous. So I think we're done. I do believe we are done. So what do you do with it at that point? Now it's looking fabulous. So let's open that up. And we've now even got that page 1 is page 1, the real page 1. If we look at this, why is it page 1 when actually it's page 3? So how come I said start on page 2 and it did? How did it know to do that? If I'd have put 3, it would have gone on page 4. And so why did it do that? And it's clever enough to know that page 2 doesn't actually exist. That this page 2 that we're looking at is only there because I've told this page to start on a recto page. So it doesn't count that. So I know there's only enough content here for one page, and therefore I told it to count the first page as being page 2. And it's the real page 2, not the PDF page 2. It's the second page with content on it, irrespective of how far from the first page that actually is. And everything is done. Right, Pete says, could you create a separate scrivening for time and place and give it a different role section type and then format it as needed? Yes, you could, Pete. The only difference with that is, if we look at what that would look like in here, if I wanted to have this as its own section, I would have to take the text from there, and then in here, I would have to put something in as like time place, and then put that up at the top, and then put that in there. And that means I'd have to remember that this would need to be formatted differently so I don't end up with the words time and place in the thing. But if that's what you want to do, this is how you would do it. You would create that, and then you would need to go into the, well, you don't need to go into the outline view. There's other ways of doing it. But to be honest, it's easier to go into the outline view. There you have your section type. And we don't have one that is time place. So what you need to do is to create a part in there, to create a section for that. So let's just call it time place. Now we've got something that we can actually apply. So in here, in our section type, we make that time place. That's the first step. Right. The next thing is to map that section to something in the compile. So we go to the compile and we edit the compile. And in here, we've got our 3, but we have another type and it's not in here yet. So we will add that in. That will be time place. And then you tell it what you want that to look like. Now, do you want the text of it? You do. Do you want the title? No. Do you want the metadata? No. Do you want the synopsis? No. Do you want the notes? No. There are occasions when you would. This is not one of them. So that one, at the moment, we would then go in and we would format it. So what do we want that to look like? So the easiest way to do this, so we can actually see it quickly, is just to go in and change the colour of it and make it bold. Right, now it's going to look really different. Or is it? Well, not yet, it's not. And the not yet is because once you've defined it, you need to map it in here. You need to go assign it. We have time place, but time place is not mapped to time place yet. So we scroll our list, there's time place, it says so at the bottom. Just click on it to hook it up and OK. And now when you compile that, we should have red text. On the one thing, we only applied it to one, which was that one there, and we didn't center it. But there you go. So it can look different there. You can change the spacing here if you need to. You've got more spacing because you've got the spacing off the chapter heading and you've got the spacing off this as well. But you can do that. And to be fully accurate, we would go in there and we would make sure that that was center aligned. So edit the format, time, place, select all of that and just center it, and that's it, sorted. So you'll get the same effect irrespective of how you do it. So how do you decide how to do it? I would say there isn't right or wrong. There's just the way you want to do it. If it's important to you that in here you don't see time and place in the binder, then add it underneath there as text. So that would look like that. It would be underneath there. If you don't mind that showing, then put it in there. There really isn't a right or wrong answer. It just depends on the way you want to work with it. Simple as that. So, Kim says, how do you calculate time and place? I don't know, because time and place was something that came from Patricia. So, I think in Patricia's case, it's to do with where that scene, when and where that scene is taking place. And I think that's required for the competition. But because you can do all sorts in Scrivener. It could be a script for a film, and you would do that very different, but you would have a time and place in it as well. So I think that's coming from Patricia in terms of calculating it. No, it's not time and place in terms of Kindle, because you wouldn't know. In a Kindle, it works it out. It has to recalculate on the fly. It's like it calculates how long it's taking you to read it. If you are really slow at some point, when you're reading, if you get interrupted but you leave your Kindle on, in those circumstances, it recalculates it. So it depends, the time and place in the book. No, that's calculated on the fly in the Kindle. A split time fiction suspense piece. Do you know, it drives me insane when you've got a series and like an episode, and it starts and then it says that there's like a bomb going off and then it says 24 hours earlier, and I'm like, no, don't confuse me. But sometimes that is a really good way to work. Absolutely. So no, that came from Patricia. It was a requirement. But Pete's obviously got a similar requirement for some information at the beginning of a chapter. So if you've got, for example, like an executive summary, then, and it's quite long, and you want it separate from the chapter title, then just do it that way. And all you need to do at the point of compile, the most difficult thing with compile is that you're juggling section types, which are in here. Each scrivening has its own section type, so all of this. And then at the point of compile, you need to map that to what you want it to look like. But the beauty of that is, once you go into the compile, so we've got this demo Patricia one. Let's say somebody else wanted the bit that we've just done in red, green. Then what you would do is just duplicate and edit the format and actually put on here, this is going to be the green one. We go into the time and place, we grab hold of this, we simply change it to green. Any other changes you want to make, do that as well, and save it, and you're done. You've now got 2 compiles, and you just use one for one thing and one for the other. To see that for real, save that. If we go into the email thing in here, if I am sending out this email, when I do my compile in here, I tell it it needs to be a MacBites mail, and I would compile that. But I might want to, well, actually it would be a different mail, but if I go into here, this is the VIP version of this mail. And when I compile that, it is pretty much doing the same thing, but I'm going to make sure that it's a VIP mail. What's the difference? The difference I can probably show you easier from Scrivener, where those mails actually live now, in the comms department. So let's get that over there. So these are the mails we've got coming up. These are the mails that have been sent. So this one, where's our reminders? Here's our reminders. So if I go into there, there is what that one looks like. That was grand. Where did you just do that? Where have you just put that? No, I have no idea why that did not show properly. Oh, is it opening down here? I'm not seeing it. It seems to be opening and closing. Right, okay. What we'll do is we'll download that and open it in a browser. So let's download it. Oh, it really is being silly tonight. Never mind that. Let's go to the comms folder and do it from the comms folder. Right. There's one. There's tonight's reminder. Right. Let's get that on screen. There's tonight's reminder and what that looks like. So this is the green button, and that is what the code looks like. The other one, I'm going to go into the archive and dig that out. There's our reminder for that one. And open that. It's pretty much the same content, but it's wrapped differently, and that is coming from 2 different compiles. You could compile the same email twice to 10 different compile settings if you want. You're using the same content, but it's going to look different when it comes out. The big difference here is that this has got the MacBites branding on the top, and the other one has my branding on the top. There are other differences in terms of the MacBites one has the poster, but the VIP one actually says what we're doing. But that's how you can create the compile and use different compiles. So in here, we would have the one that I did to test it all, which is called Patricia. We've then got the demo that we did, and then we've duplicated that, and now we've got the green one. So at the point, don't start duplicating. For heaven's sake, don't do that until you are absolutely certain that it's working. Because otherwise you're going to have to backtrack through it and make lots of changes. So that's why I do it iteratively, very carefully, check every single thing as I go along. And then once it's finished, that's the time to duplicate and start making changes. So hopefully that gives you something to play with. Right, let me catch up on this. Oh, wow. You'd probably do it that way to make sure you don't forget to put the time and place in. Well, if you're not using the chapter heading for anything else, you're unlikely to miss it because the content of the chapter heading will be in front of you. It might be better to keep it separate if you're going to need to use that for something else, like an executive summary. So think ahead and think in terms of your own document. It's going to change depending on your content. Historical timeline and contemporary timeline. Oh, that's got to be difficult to organise, hasn't it? Could you drag the time and place in automatically from me on timeline? They're compatible. Yes, if it can come through, then absolutely. As long as it's there, it will compile it. Shame it wasn't in version 2, because you saved me loads of time. Scrivener Every fully integrates with Zotero with the ultimate academic writing tool. I don't know. I don't know where they would be going with version 4. because they take quite a long time. And this one's been out 4 years now, but it's only been out a year for Windows. In fact, I think it's less than a year. So where they would go with it, with the next version, I don't know whether linking in with other services would be more of a priority than something that's a priority to me, which would be sharing. And the only way to share would be a really strong back end. It uses Dropbox, and it only uses Dropbox. It does not use iCloud, which makes the sync a bit of a manual faff. Whether they would be able to create a unique Scrivener server system and then charge per month for that with a flat fee for the software, I don't know. So he's not given any clues where he's going with it, but I know where you're coming from, Pete. Once you get to this level, it's like, I want it to be totally automated. But we'll see where they go. Right. Oh, Patricia says, thank you so much. Where's the tip jar? I'll sort a tip jar out if you like. Perfect. And to watch several times and get your compile set up. Another meeting. Enjoy. Biggest issue is with creating the bibliography and end footnotes without having to use some really ugly hacks and exporting via OpenOffice. Yet there's not really going to be a way around that. And what's worse in terms of layout is the fact that the current version of Affinity Publisher doesn't support footnotes and endnotes. And people are incensed by that. It drives them mad. I don't use footnotes and endnotes that much that it's that much of an issue, but I can imagine it would be a nightmare. Catching up. No, I have not demoed that. It's a citation manager. Was it that long ago you started writing it, or did you upgrade to version 3 late? Well, it was 4 years ago. And even then it was quite late, and it didn't come out until the middle of NaNoWriMo. People were thinking it would be at the beginning of NaNoWriMo. And can you imagine you've waited like 5 years for this update to Scrivener, and you are deep in the middle of NaNoWriMo, and boom, a brand new version of Scrivener drops, and you're like, oh, I need to NaNoWriMo, but I want to play with Scrivener. I think he should have left it, to be honest. Leave it till the end of NaNoWriMo, but he didn't. So, okay, that's where we're at. Right, I need to go and find... Where's PowerPoint gone? Disappeared from my screen. Ah, there you are. Right, let's go back in there then. Okay. No, that's not going to work either, is it? It's being awkward tonight. There we go. So those were Patricia's requirements, and every one of them. We could put a tick in a box with that. We were sorted. Can we squeeze the unboxing in, Mike? I think we could squeeze the unboxing in, couldn't we? It's a tiny unboxing, but we're going to need that, aren't we? So I'll move over to there. Let's see if we can quickly do that. Talk amongst yourselves while I get this camera working, because it's the usual incantation, isn't it, Mike? Right. Can you make sure that the thing that's plugged into has a light on it?
Blue.
Yeah. The one next to that.
They're
Right.
all on blue.
Yes, is this one on blue?
That one's on blue.
Right, okay. Right, I need to do magic things, so I'm going to need to come out of there to do some magic things. So let's get rid of this. PowerPoint has caused complete havoc here, you know. And it's caused complete havoc. Let's go back to that. Right, let's switch you to that while I do magic beans. It's changed the screen it puts the presenter view on and will not change it back. No amount of incantation or threat has done me any good whatsoever with it. So it's driving me insane. Now it's installed the camera for about the 50th time. At least it's got the right one. So let's get that out of the way. It's only tiny, so I'll do it there like that. Right, fingers crossed that is going to work. Oh, what have you done now? Every time I use this camera, it adds another camera. It adds a number to it. This one's version 3. It's the same camera. It's just got a mind of its own. Right, hopefully you can see that. So let's get rid of that. And where's the little toy? It's only tiny and it's only cheap. But it's got a brethren. So let's open it. Let's open it. Oh dear, let's come off. There we go. Right, let's open it. Oh, there it is. There it is. Like I say, only tiny. But it has an accompanying part with it. So let's open that and get all of these out. And there they are. Right, there's 3 of them. Anybody want to hazard a guess? They're a keyring, but they're a keyring for a certain toy, aren't they? So let's open that. There we go. There's the rubber bit. They look a bit dodgy, actually, don't they? No, I've got them out of the packet. They look a bit dodgy. Right, which one do you want, Mike? I'll pick the black one. There we go. Now, what are they for? Oh, you've got to know, haven't you? These arrived in the week. I know we're not leaving the house, so why do we need an AirTag? Well, we've realised that we do leave the house to walk the dog, and we could lose our keys while we're out, couldn't we? So there was an early Black Friday sale on them, and I bought 4. And I even let you unbox them, which was the last time I'm doing that. I said, be careful with that box. Next minute, it ripped it clean in half.
Yeah, but it wouldn't open, would it?
So this goes in here somehow, by the look of it. And you're not to stretch it too much, lest it come out. So I've got to get this in here. Oh, make it difficult. I would. Right, go on, get in there. Oh, this is tricky. Well, I didn't fancy spending £35 on an Apple one. That was the issue. I mean, these things are only $29, and the reason that I bought them was they're on sale. So there's 15% off them. So I didn't want to be, getting these cheap and then paying a fortune for a case. Oh, this is an acquired art. I could liken this to something, but I'm not going to in polite company. But I remember doing it at school with a banana. Getting the devil's look here. Did you not do that with a banana?
No.
Oh, we were at an all-girls school and we did that with a banana.
No, it's courgette.
Was it? Oh.
Or zucchini.
One side's flat and one side's round. And I don't know which way round it's supposed to go. But there we go. It's now in there. The reason that we went for these ones, the split rings look decent. And they are, indeed. Let's tip it round so we can see it. They're really quite thick. There we go.
Pete says he loses his keys more in the house than anywhere else. Do they have audio alarms to locate them?
They do. You can ping it. The other thing you can do with it, so tell you what, let's leave it where it is. Where's my phone? Right. It was really easy to set up. I know Paul's had these for ages, but it was really easy to set up. So in here, can we zoom in a bit? There we go. Right. Let's zoom out a bit. There we go. Right, that's my toy telling me that my keys are at home. So the blue thing is the house, and the little thing next to it is the key to tell me that it's at home. Now, it says it's with me. So if you take that, Mike, and disappear with it, let's see if I can track it. I have no idea what to do with tracking it, but we'll track it.
How far do you want me to go?
Oh, downstairs or somewhere. Well, actually, the bathroom. The further you're away from me horizontally. So it says it's with me, but what if it isn't? Right. It says play sound. So we'll get Mike to tell me, is it playing a sound?
No.
Oh, it's thinking about it. Oh, for crying out loud. It says not reachable. I mean, you're virtually next to me. Let's waft the phone around.
There we go.
Yeah, I can hear it.
Now it's making it.
It's making a sound. Bring it in so we can hear it. There you go, Pete. That's the noise. Right. Waltz off with it again, and I'll do the find and do nearby. Right, so I've got another button, this green one down here, that says find nearby. So Mike's disappeared with it. It is moving on the map. Signal is weak. Try moving to a different location. Honestly, he's only in the bathroom.
Come nearer then.
No! That's not going to work, is it? I'm wafting this. Oh, crying out loud. What it should say is 20 foot this way. Put the thing on the shelf outside, Mike. Oh, there you go. There you go. Put it down. I had it then for a minute. There we go. It's 17 feet away. And if you turn this round, it will then tell you in what direction it is. Oh, hours of happy fun, Pete. Hours of happy fun. There you go. Mike's bringing it back in again. There you go. Elaine's keys are here. You've found it. Awesome. Oh, got to be done, hasn't it? Got to be done. So what we did was we got these, which is 3 of them. Now you're thinking that's odd because there's going to be 4 in the packet, which indeed there is. The reason that we did that was we got another 3. So we're actually going to end up with 6. Good night, Ted. Good to have you with us. We've got 6. We've got more coming. We've got a red one, a black one and a white one, I think, in the other thing. So we're going to end up with 6. So we're going to have 2 spares. But what we would have done was that you can engrave them. You get the free engraving on this bit from Apple. But because we saved 15%, we didn't get them engraved. So we needed these with different colours on. So we know whose is whose. So that's why we did that. So there we go. Do you want to put one yours in one?
Yeah.
Can you work out which way you're supposed to put them in? Because one's rounded and one isn't, I don't think. Unless it's the shape of... Anyway, there you go. There's the grey one. Try that one. Right. There we go. So, that's tonight's unboxing. So, let's head back in here and wrap up before it's tomorrow morning. Right, where are we? We need PowerPoint, don't we? Need PowerPoint again. There it is. There's PowerPoint. Right, let's switch back to it. There we go. So, unboxing. I actually have a picky of the things, or I will have when I get over there. There we go. So that's the ones that we got today. I thought this was a bit dodgy. Don't lose your dog. 1, you're not supposed to do that with it. And 2, I don't think Lola would approve. But we'll give it a go and find out. So, coming up, we have next show. How is it the end of November? Oh, it's very nearly our Christmas holiday. We have a very early Christmas holiday. So same time, same place next week. And on demand, you will find everything at youtube.com/ElaineGiles. We have our After Hours playlist, which is MacBites.co.uk/After Hours playlist. And there will be, hopefully, fingers crossed, a MacBites this week, which will premiere on MacBites FM. Probably Tuesday or Wednesday, depending. We love you guys. If you love us and you love what we do, then do give us a thumbs up. Makes all the difference with YouTube. You've seen the mails tonight that are compiled from Scrivener. If you would like to participate in that, there is elainegiles.com/VIP where you'll get my mails, and all the things MacBites is macbites.co.uk/macbites-mail. And if you want more MacBites, and who doesn't, then there's Slack, where we carry on the conversation 24/7. And you can join us completely free of charge, macbites.co.uk/Slack. And you can contact us on any of those. But don't use the phone, because it upsets me. She saw this week. That was a really, really bad idea of them. It really was. Right. So, oh no, not the poster. Hang on. I wanted to leave that on the screen. That's what I wanted. Because PowerPoint is doing my head in tonight, I'm afraid. So, have we all got a nice weekend planned? We have, haven't we? We've got a ladies' night not to attend.
Yeah, I've got a meeting in 6 hours.
Right, well, you better get off to bed, hadn't you? Early night, then. Early night. I'll have some tea and take some painkillers. Still on the painkillers. And see how we get on. But we will be back with you next week. If you fancy a music show, do join us tomorrow night at brooklands196.com, 8 o'clock UTA time. Right, let's catch up here. Pete's got a wallet known as the Fat Alarm. Set the phone up in his wallet. Okay. Yes, the batteries last about a year apparently and are replaceable. There's the metal bit on the back. You push on it and twist it and then pop a new one in. I think it's the same battery that you use in the Apple remote for the Apple TV. Right. Thank you, Kim. Thank you. Great show tonight, Elaine. And I hope glad you're feeling better. Oh, and Renee. Both great. Thank you. Thank you, Renee. You hardly use Slack. I don't believe that, not for one moment. Okay. Peter, I hope you are feeling better soon. Good morning to Jonathan, who will be catching up and seeing his bit, because it's coming up to Hanukkah, isn't it? It must be.
Yeah.
It was very close last year. I'm not quite sure this year, but it's usually around within the next month. So that'll be grand. Okay.
It's the Hanukkah fair at synagogue tomorrow.
Oh, well, it must be really soon then. So happy Hanukkah for whenever that happens. Okay, so we will catch you all tomorrow. Yes, Brooklands is going to be grand.
Next weekend.
Oh, there you go. That clashes with, what's it? Black Friday and Thanksgiving. That's what I'm after. Thanksgiving. That's the one. So now, of course, Mike, you can put one of these on me and never lose me, can't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, because, you're not going out the house. You're not going to lose me, Mike. It's not going to happen. You're not going to get away. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you. Right. Okay, then we're going to head off. And I'm going to have something to eat. So we're going to see you next time. But for the moment, I'm going to say good night from me.
And good night from me.
And as I say, we will both see you next time. Stay safe, guys.